Did you guys hear about the what this month's McDonald's meal special is?
I did not.
No,
You
it's not still the Grimace thing, is it?
no, it's the as featured in meal. You guys didn't catch wind of that?
Oh, yeah, no,
Oh, I
did
did
hear
see
about
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like you just it's either a Big Mac or some chicken nuggets or the quarter pounder, and you get it on a bag that says like the bag says as featured in Space Jam and I think Boondock Saints is one of them and a few other things, so on and so forth. And the drink and the fries have have text that for stuff that those have been in. And it's kind of a ripoff because it's just an up price for different packaging on the same food. But I think missing Grimace, I kind of because we tried to get the Grimace shakes when we were driving from California to Colorado, and we stopped in Nevada, and they were all out. So that was kind of
Yeah.
our one opportunity, and we just kind of missed the bus on Grimace. I never got to try it and die like the kids on TikTok do. So I think I was just like weirdly itchy to give in to the corporate cheapness of the as featured in meal. So I went in to go do it, and I was also kind of bummed because you can only get, like I said, Big Mac nuggets or quarter pounder, and I'm almost always a double quarter pounder guy. Like that's kind of my go-to. I think the Big Mac is fine, but I feel more full after the double quarter pounder. And I just knew that if I said, "Can I get it but as a double?" they'd be like, "Of course not." But I was just like so resigned to my fate that I had to try it. And you guys know I have that McDonald's shirt, right? The one I got from Box Lunch.
The one with like the fries and stuff on it, right?
Yeah, it's a really cool eye-catching shirt, just like white with like the colorful McDonald's designs on it. It was like, I'm not. What am I gonna do? Go to McDonald's and not wear that? So of course I go in wearing that. And the guys behind the counter, it's like the clerk and what looks like kind of a superior manager. And the manager kind of like taps the clerk on the back and like when he sees me he kind of chuckles like, "All right, good luck with this one, buddy." Like seeing this like big man in a McDonald's shirt walk into the McDonald's. And I go up to the counter and like I that already makes me feel a little self-conscious. So, and I want to be clear before I say what happens next. I don't blame the clerk for having this reaction. He's ultimately reasonable. Because I go, "Are you guys doing the as featured in meal?" And the clerk just goes, "Yeah, I don't know what that is." And I was just like,
Most McDonald's are franchised out, so they don't always follow corporate stuff.
"That's true."
Oh, that makes sense.
But hear me out. There's more. But wait, there's more. So I'm more, as you can guess, my honor is like wounded. Like I am mortified by this point. The consolation being, okay, I'll just do the double quarter pounder like I usually do. And just, I take my seat to wait for my food. And the shame of being a grown 26-year-old man in McDonald's regalia who knows more about McDonald's than someone who works at McDonald's just really started to set in, and I wanted to like crumple into a ball and like cease to be. So, and I kind of look out and then I'm like, "Wait a second." And I see the workers are wearing shirts with the as featured in like symbolism on it. They have like the IPs on the back. And I was like, "Wait a minute." And then I remember the way the guy kind of looks at me and I'm almost like, "Are they like fucking with me?" Like, are they like? And I kind of don't like. I don't expect anyone to feel that passionately about their fast food job. Like I get it, but I was almost like, And so I don't think I'm out of line for going up and saying, the thing I asked about, it's what's on your shirt. And the guy goes, "Oh yeah, the August meal." And it was the best case scenario because he gave me my normally priced preferred item, the double quarter pounder, in the as featured in bag. So it kind of turned out like best case there.
Yeah, I
You
guess
go
it
walk out of
it
the
worked out.
store and you look in the reflection and you just see Grimace.
Yeah, there he is. I fucking I saw people were making like there's like this draw your favorite character in a sad situation fan art that people fucking do where like I don't blame, I think it's a reason when you're in kind of a dark mood, you draw your favorite character going through something you relate to. And I saw like Uwu's sad Grimace fan art, like no, not a lick of irony. Cuz it's like it was a drawing of Grimace like on his iPhone and seeing people making the TikToks and like getting upset that people are throwing up the shakes and like dying, like and
That was a shame.
yeah, they like write him like a man baby. He's like, people hate Grimace shake.
People hate my Grimace shake. Killed people.
He's just like Elon Musk at that Valorant tournament the other day.
That was fucking hilarious.
Man, most divorced man alive, Elon Musk. Ian Grimace is divorced.
I think he ate his partner.
Yeah, that probably adds up. He's got a lot of kids though, just various little Grimace goblins kind of walking around the earth. All out of wedlock.
Was it like a Adam Sandler movie where it's like this guy happens to have kids like all over the world? No, it was Vince Vaughn, I think. It was like The Delivery Man, I think.
Because he donated a bunch of sperm.
Yeah.
And made 1,000 kids.
So that, but it's Grimace. He's just like,
which is illegal.
Well, the original design for Grimace, when he was first introduced, he had multiple arms. So, make of that what you will with his multiple partners and multiple children.
Biblically accurate Grimace.
Yeah. He's the embodiment of a milkshake.
The embodiment of a milkshake has multiple arms?
Because it's evidently
you didn't fucking realize that, Dav?
No, I worked at McDonald's for 3 years and I just never noticed.
So
I guess you didn't climb high enough up the ladder for them to tell you what Grimace is.
It's like Scientology.
Yeah.
This badger to find out what the Grimace comes from.
This seems like a bad time to mention that I'm wearing my McDonald's shirt right now.
Oh, so you're gonna have to put yourself in the thumbnail, just like wearing the McDonald's shirt.
I'll put in Grimace.
Looking into the reflection as Grimace stares back at you.
Seeing in the mirror the man I want to be. And it's the Grimace with the big ass. Are you craving my McNuggies? Rev up those fryers and fill those champagne glasses to the tippy top. It's West Coast Toast and Roast with Tommy, Will, and Dav. Welcome back to West Coast Toast and Roast. I look in the mirror every day when I wake up and see Grimace. That's me, Tommy.
And I'm Will, and I wake up in the mirror every day and see the Bionicle that I'm meant to be.
Y'all have some gender dysphoria, but I'm Dav, and when I look in the mirror, I see Wilford Brimley.
Diabetes.
Diabetes.
Have you guys seen the Family Guy bit where Wilford Brimley kills a bunch of people?
No, I've never even heard of that.
Oh my god. He just gets...
That's just the thing.
We used to call my Yorkie Wilford Brimley because he was like a fat little dog and he had the beard like Wilford Brimley. You know how it is when your dog has an initial name but it's become 12 different things that sound nothing like it, and one of those for Fitzhugh the Yorkie was Wilford and Wilford Brimley. Yeah. All right. Well, we all three caught a couple movies in the theater, as we sometimes do. We are going to start off with those. We all watched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, which was, for a time, one of my most anticipated movies alongside Barbie. And it's some people are saying it's sort of the Spider-Versification of Ninja Turtles, but I think that's perhaps a bit reductive when it has kind of different things going on, but you could compare them in the way they elevate the medium and tell a very relatable story, more emotionally centered story while still being very comic booky. And I was not disappointed. I think it's terrific. It was briefly my favorite film of the year until something I'm going to bring up later pushed it off that ledge.
And I saw it just kind of randomly, And honestly, the trailers didn't really do it justice. The turtles kind of looked annoying, but I watched it, and yeah, there are definitely moments where I'm like, man, these kids need to shut the fuck up. But like most of the time, I did enjoy myself. I do agree that it's, well, I really like the one where like all the turtles go to like the different like shows. I like that turtle movie. But I think like this is probably the best like for the big screen we've got turtle movie. Honestly, the Stinger probably has me more excited than anything.
The Stinger was really fucking good.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. It was a very good movie. Double featured it with the other movie we're going to talk about later. But yeah, I didn't really know what to think of it from the trailers. I did.
Oh, you had some very decisive things to say last podcast, David.
Did I? What did I say last podcast about?
I was like, oh, I'm looking forward to Mutant Mayhem, and you were like, oh, I'm sorry about that. And then I go, and then I'm like shitting and crying and cowering, like, it has a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes! And Dav is like, Seymour Skinner, pathetic face going, it's 98% cringe.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it was very enjoyable, I'll say. I really liked it a lot. It did feel like maybe there could have been a little bit more to it at parts. I think that the pacing is a little bit off, especially in like the first half.
Yeah.
But as it goes on and as more little mutant creatures show up, including one played by I can never pronounce her name correctly, but it's like Natasia Demetrio or something. She's in What We Do in the Shadows. She plays a little bat creature.
Oh, so that's why she's the bat in this.
Yeah.
That's fun. She's Wingnut.
Yeah. She does a great job. A lot of the voice acting was pretty great, honestly. I felt like the turtles really did feel like, kids, and it really worked for me. So, yeah, I had a good time with it.
What I think they captured really well is the fact that, like, this movie has a lot of, like, pop culture references that feel really hollow from like, in most contexts, but you kind of get the idea that these are 4 sheltered teenagers that have done nothing but, like, watch anime and Marvel movies their whole lives because they haven't been allowed to barely leave the goddamn sewer, so, like, it kind of makes sense that that's what they have to kind of lean on, and it comes back around to working out, I feel.
Yeah, they watched so much Marvel movies, they decided to watch Schindler's List and was like, where's the post-credit scene?
They're living my dream lifestyle, man. You just stay underground and watch anime and movies all day and nothing else.
You wish you were a turtle?
Living in some walkable sewers.
Yeah, some walkable sewers, that's right. Well, New York City is as walkable as it gets for the U.S., so...
I
wish... but it's also New York City.
What's wrong with New York City?
I would never fucking go to New York City. It's just, like...
At all?
I mean, I guess I'd, like, visit there, but I can't imagine living there.
I'd totally live there.
If
it weren't so friggin' expensive.
The opposite coastal extreme from Will over here and his Los Angeles elitism.
East Coast teased and reest.
Oh man. Speaking of perks of living in the sewers, Splinter is so good in this too.
Oh yeah, Jackie Chan does great.
Oh yeah. I feel so bad for him when he puts together the whole pizza dinner with the Chris Pine cardboard cutout, and he's like, I'm the best Chris. Oh man. Poor guy. I love him though. It's one of the best Splinters, I feel.
Big upgrade from Hidden Strike, another movie he was in this year that just sucked.
Oh yeah, and there was Ride On, which I kind of wanted to see, but I don't think ever got. It was like, I think it was mostly a China thing. It didn't really get traction here.
Yeah.
Oh, and Ice Cube is Superfly. He's a really good villain. I liked him a lot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty much a new character made for this, even though Baxter Stockman, that scientist who was Giancarlo Esposito, he's consistently turned into the Fly, and I'm willing to wager there was a point in production where he would have, but I think they found a thematic core with making Superfly his own thing, and I really like how he turned out. He has one of the rawest designs I've ever seen, with the one big fucking, like, mandible arm and two more little scrawny, like, fly arms he's always rubbing together. He is, like, insanely fucking cool.
Yeah, he's really cool, and I'm glad they went with a villain like him and didn't, like, start with the Shredder or something. It's nice to have, you know, build up to that sort of thing.
Yeah, I feel like especially, like, if they want to make another one, they can't, like, instantly be like, yep, here's the Shredder.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
Well, and there's also Maya Rudolph is Cynthia Utrom, who's that weird-ass business lady. Do you guys know what the lore implication of her name is?
That she's Krang.
Yeah.
I don't even know who that is.
So Dav...
So Krang is like this little, like, fetus-looking dude, and he's from the planet Utrom, right?
So Krang is actually from Dimension X. And the Utroms are a similar but not the same alien species, but they are so similar that in recent iterations they've been tied together.
Doesn't Ninja Turtles sometimes take place in, like, the Image universe?
Yeah, definitely. And Usagi Yojimbo is there, and there's blood.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I bet next movie, the Maya Rudolph lady is gonna, like, open up her chest, and there's, like, a freaky little alien in there.
Like Men in Black style?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Who would you guys want to voice the Shredder? Because we're getting him in the next one. Spoilers, he's in the next one. Oh, well.
Gosh,
we didn't have to spoil it. We just assume that he's going to be in one of them in the future.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I'll figure it out in post. I don't know. It's not the dumbest I've looked on this podcast.
Gosh. Yeah, that's a really good question. I feel like they've gotta, like, go hard to look for one, because Shredder shouldn't just be, like, a guy.
Yeah.
Like, he's gotta be the Shredder.
It's gotta be someone fucking cool. And preferably Asian, even though he's not always Asian. He's gone through a lot of iterations. He's been a white guy before, but I'd like if they got an Asian actor. So it could be like, it could be like an old kung fu guy, like Donnie Yen, to kind of parallel with Jackie Chan, or like if Sonny Chiba is down, he could fucking do it.
Yeah, I'd like to see, like, an older dude play him.
Yeah.
I'd like to see, and, like, I don't really have a whole lot of, like, skin in the game. I'm not super invested in Shredder, but I really do want to see, Ma Dong-suk in more, like, Western stuff. He's, the guy who was in Eternals and Train to Busan.
Oh, yeah.
I probably butchered the pronunciation of his name, but, like, he's been in more Western stuff lately, and I just would like to see him in more stuff. So if that was, like, an opportunity, I'd be down with it.
That'd be pretty cool. I could be into that. We're gonna get a TV show based in this continuity, and then a sequel. So I think all of the weird animals voiced by Seth Rogen's celebrity friends are gonna suddenly be very quiet, but those core 4 actors have a lot of history in just, like, cartoons. I think that was a good call to keep it rolling from that perspective.
Yeah. Do you know when the TV show and, like, sequel are supposed to come out, or?
Not off the top of my head. I don't think it's, like, anytime soon. We don't have a trailer or anything. It's just been announced that they've been greenlit.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, I guess I'll be bummed that the voice of one of the actors I'm most attracted to isn't coming out of the big fucking alligator, but, you know, c'est la vie. Well, on that awkward note, we also saw Blue Beetle, the first film of the new DC universe by proxy.
Yeah, kinda.
Because I think James Gunn said he's going to carry it in and commit to the bit. Man, so...
I mean, to be fair, he did that with Flash too, so that would have been kind of funny if he's like, oh, actually, never mind.
Well, he promised Flash would, like... I thought Flash was supposed to be, like, the end of the old one, and this is the new one moving forward.
I mean, from what... And this might be, like, hearsay, but... From what I heard, it seemed like James Gunn was like, oh yeah, we're definitely keeping it open for, like, the Flash to end in the new universe. But that might have just been, like, bullshit.
Yeah, I think James Gunn needs to shut up a little bit, I feel, because, like, the only reason there's so... Like, no one else in his position talks as much as him, and I like his work, but it's like, you don't owe anyone the answers to the questions that they're asking the way you're, like, freely handing out on Twitter. I don't know why he feels the need to do that.
Yeah.
It's kind of, yeah, it's just kind of tying his hands. I don't think it's gonna benefit anyone except giving out, like, I feel like we should not know as much of his plans as we do for the DCCU, and, like, I think cinematic universes are a little bit on their way out with Marvel putting in, like, diminishing returns, but
Yeah.
we probably talked that to death. Let's talk specifically about Blue Beetle. David, when I opened Letterboxd and saw you give, like, a relatively, like, under-marketed DC film a 9 out of 10, a whopping 9, I thought you were, like, punking us. So I definitely want to hear you go at length about your love for this film.
Yeah, I was not punking you. This was a very good time. And, you know, objectively speaking, maybe this is more like an 8 out of 10, but I feel like, for one, it's like, as a superhero film, it does stand out among a lot of the stuff that's been coming out, which, you know, to be fair, we've been getting a few of those lately with, like, Spider-Verse and stuff. But this one, as far as being, like, a, you know, a live-action CGI fest, kind of main cinematic universe type of movie, it was kind of a very welcome surprise, because number one, it's shot, like, quite well.
Oh yeah.
They actually try to do some interesting things with the cinematography, especially with, like, the lighting. Like, there's a lot of just, like, blue added to a bunch of different scenes, and it just really adds a lot to just the atmosphere. And in addition, the main superhero suit is just so cool looking.
Sorry, I have to interrupt you. The suit they use, so the movie theater that I go to has, like, costumes, and right now they have the Blue Beetle suit. It looks really cool up close.
Sheesh.
Yeah, I mean, I figured it, because it's like this practical suit. It's not made of goddamn nano machines like everything is lately.
I was gonna say, I had no idea there was, like, a suit to have. Like, I thought all suits lately were just, like, CGI, honestly.
Yeah, even fucking Ant-Man and the Quantumania, and it's ridiculous how much they're just putting nanotech into everything so that it makes it easier for the VFX artists to just take the mask on and off. But
Yeah.
Blue Beetle, they don't really do that. It's a practical suit, extremely cool looking. The suit is kind of a character of its own, and there's this really good progression between the main character and the suit, where they kind of start off believing certain things about the way they should be fighting crime, and then by the end they kind of flip-flop it to kind of show how they've had an effect on each other, and that's really cool. And also, you know, it's a Mexican superhero, so, you know, represent, and I watched it in a movie theater with just a ton of Mexican people who were having the absolute times of their lives. So it was a fantastic movie theater experience that I don't think can be replicated now, because if you didn't really watch this opening weekend, you are going to be sitting in pretty much an empty theater. But
I heard it got a bit of a bump, like, weekend 2. I might be wrong, though.
Could be. I mean, I feel like maybe word of mouth is spreading. This movie is a little bit better than it was marketed as, so people are, like, checking it out of curiosity, but I think that overall the reception to this is not going to be as massive as really anything else.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, I do think it's, like, For me, it was mostly like a very standard superhero origin movie, but it's also like one of the better ones.
Yeah,
Like I
for
feel
sure.
like nowadays superhero origin movies, like when I watch them, I'm like, okay, this is gonna be like a 6 at best. And you know, I rated Blue Beetle a 7. I do think it has some pacing problems, and you know, there are a bit of like superhero first movie cliches, but I feel like the fight scenes in particular are actually inspired. Like it's not just you know, companies throwing like CGI action figures at each other.
They were labbing
Straight
some.
up like Buster Sword at the end.
Well, they were
Yeah,
I
that
feel
was
like
probably my favorite part.
they had to have labbed some Injustice too when they were figuring out some of those combos. When he like gets out the big like maces over his fist, that's like straight up his super move in that game.
And the villain's pretty cool. I think that he probably could have used a little bit more screen time and development, because I think they kind of had to shoehorn in his origin story at the very end there. But overall, he was decent. And there's another What We Do in the Shadows alumnus in here, Harvey Guillen, I think that's his name. He's the kind of the bigger little scientist dude with the glasses.
Oh, Sanchez, as he's erroneously called.
Yeah, Sanchez. There's some weird like commentary there where
Yeah.
like the main white lady villain and just a lot of people kind of keep on being like casually racist, but it doesn't really play into the message of the movie at all, so it's just a little weird.
Yeah, not really. They are just kind of like, oh yeah, these villains are horrible people, and they're racist.
Well,
Racist.
I would actually argue that a lot of the movies about gentrification, because I think maybe like because I think the setting number one is my favorite part of it. They established Palmera City. I can't quite remember what they call it. They establish it as a neighborhood, a city and neighborhood, a city that's being heavily gentrified and still has like some scattered communities and neighborhoods. And there's this wonderful bit where like the Reyes family is having dinner at this like really authentic, gentle looking bodega and just enjoying each other's company, and it's all, very naturalistic. And Jaime and his sister like look out and they see like the city encroaching on them, and it like is this CGI neon light eyesore like out of a Spy Kids film. And it's like, I don't know how intentionally ugly it was. I don't know if someone was like, yeah, this is the cool city. But just seeing this like awful looking CGI city that looks like it's in a different film from this small neighborhood they're in was like what drove that part of the conflict home.
Yeah, that part was pretty cool. I do like the kind of idea of the sort of big city gentrifying the poor people out of their homes and stuff. So I can see the tie-in there. I just feel like that part was done very down to earth, and the actual racism parts were really not.
Right, that's fair. That's fair. I think in no small part was how endeared I was to the family characters, because they're all just so fucking charming. Like, I loved the dad by a certain point. George Lopez is Uncle Rudy. He's wonderful. They all
fucking Nana was the MVP at the end.
She was the fucking chain gun. Oh, yeah, that was...
Down with the imperialists.
I will say that in regards to the villain, I think if you looked up an image of what Omak looks like in the comics, you might like have an aneurysm. Because he is in concept, he's pretty much the same in that he's like it is one-man army corps, and he's like a weird experiment, but is in a very different like Jack Kirby direction as I know him. I'm not like, that's not a criticism, because I do think it's an appropriate change for this film, but it is quite a divide.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, no, I give a pleasant thumbs up to Blue Beetle. Yeah, I think that the very soulful character element is largely what saved it for me. It has a kickstart my heart needle drop, which is like almost a death sentence in 2023.
Yeah,
but
that
like,
part was really unfortunate.
Yeah.
but they make a point that the previous Blue Beetle, Ted Cord, was this very individualistic guy, and he had like weird, like I think Jaime straight up says he kind of looks like if Batman had ADHD. So that lets them go whole hog with like a big Beetle walker mecha that I really loved ultimately, and all these bright blue like fireworks ass weapons. I thought that came out really nicely.
Yeah, and it does lead to a post-credit scene that is not like specifically to set up other parts of the universe. It's like to actually set up a sequel directly to Blue Beetle, which is also a welcome surprise.
It might bum you out to know, though, that Blue Beetle is best friends with Booster Gold, which is one of the names on, like, James Gunn's list of what he's gonna do. So I think that is to kind of tie in as well.
Well, I mean, I am certain that this is going to play into the universe in some way, but, like, the post-credit scene of this movie specifically is just more Blue Beetle stuff. It's not, like, some fucking Scrimblow Bimblow just showing up and saying hello to the camera.
Yeah, that's true. It wasn't Black Adam.
I'm arm fall off, boy.
What are we gonna do to save the city? Eat some matter, lad. Oh. Are we ready? Oh, fuck, we did it again. We didn't do trailer Life and Death. Oh, fuck it.
We can do that now.
Are we about ready?
Yeah, let's do trailer Life and Death.
Alright, the first trailer I sent is for A24's first musical, Dicks the Musical. Kind of what it says on the tin. It is a raunchy-looking musical parody with Nathan Lane and Megan Thee Stallion about two rival businessmen who find out they're twins that were separated at birth, and they're trying to parent trap their parents back together. Bowen Yang and Megan Mullally are also there, and it's kind of like A20. The director of Borat, for one thing, as well, Larry Charles, and A24 is kind of flag pulling it as their first ever musical. What do we think of this trailer, boys?
It looks interesting.
Yeah, I would say it looks interesting. I would give it a life because I think it could be funny. But at the same, like, I think it definitely has, like, the capacity to be really bad. Mm. But for right now, I'm definitely intrigued, and I think that's what trailers are for, so I give it a life.
I kind of get the same vibes as when I, like, first saw the Everything Everywhere trailers and just thought, wow, this looks like a stupid concept, and then that ended up being one of my favorite movies of all time, so I appreciate the unique, weird vibe this is going for, so I will give it a life.
Yeah, I was almost, because, like, the theater nerd in me a little bit was like, why do we still have to approach musicals with so much of a veneer of irony? Like, that was getting a little tiresome for me when there's, like, it's possible to have a genuinely good musical, but the recent attempts at that have been, like, Dear Evan Hansen and Cinderella. And I'm like, well, maybe we can stop being authentic for a minute.
Yeah.
And then
God, fucking 80-year-old teenager Evan Hansen.
Man, there was a movie called Theater Camp that I really enjoyed, and I'm not talking about it today, but he won me back a little bit with that. He wasn't bad, but he had a lot of help in that for better actors. And then I think there's, like, some sewer boys in it, and I was like, oh, I'm all in Dicks the Musical. Man, this does just seem like the kind of thing where it's like, well, what am I going to do? Not see Dicks the Musical?
Dicks? Dicks the Musical? Can we get tickets?
So that is Unanimous Life.
Flawless victory.
That brings us to trailer number 2. The new Sega IP, Hyenas, which, I saw the trailer and I was like, what a nifty looking shooter that has no, like, drama behind it whatsoever. And then you look at the comments section, it's like, Do either of you know?
What are the comments saying? Because I thought it just looked bad.
Well, Dav, do you know, like, the whole you sent me, like, a weird message that I didn't fully understand. Do you know what the whole deal is there?
I just know it looks horrible. I mean, I saw the initial, like, announcements for it, and it looks like trash. It's just like, okay, so, you know, Overwatch and the consequences it's had on this industry, for God's sake. Just the wacky hero shooter with just a bunch of what they say are, okay, they're gonna call them crazy character designs, but have you ever seen that picture of that woman who has, like, the bag of frozen vegetables on her in the store? It's like,
crazy.
So crazy, love her. It's soulless. The character designs were invented by a computer to appeal to, or to what they think appeal to the Zoomers, to get them to buy loot boxes and buy into their live service. I'm not down with it. I don't care if it's like, oh, it's 0G. It looks like garbage. It's probably gonna flop. I don't know why people keep doing this. Even back when Overwatch first came out, if you tried to do a hero shooter, it was going to fail because people were just playing Overwatch, and that's still true. If people want a hero shooter, they're going to play Valorant or Overwatch 2.
Isn't Overwatch 2's current status on Steam, like, overwhelmingly negative?
Yeah, but that doesn't
yeah.
stop, like, millions of people from playing it.
Well, fair. I was
It's a
like...
horrible game, but...
See, when I was young and naive, I was a little bit into Overwatch. We've all been there, all right. And, there is just this weird disconnect where it's like, I've always said, oh, I don't really like shooters. And it's, for the longest time, it's like, well, I probably like shooters at a certain point. I just don't like gray army men, you know? So, like, Overwatch kind of had that going for it, where it's like, oh, I can be some weird, colorful character that I don't know how I feel about the designs always today. Sure, all right. And now that, like, you know, I saw a documentary where a guy was like, if you've done cocaine, you've contributed to the death of somebody in a third world country. That's how I would feel about playing, even touching Overwatch today. Because, like, and I'm not such a prude over, like, oh, this has a, you know, there's only so much ethical consumption under capitalism, but, like, I can't just, like, sit down with Overwatch. What am I? You know?
No,
Like,
don't play Blizzard games. Just
yeah.
I uninstalled Battle.net years ago and have not picked up a single Blizzard game since, and I am all the better for it. It's a much better life over here in the not playing Blizzard team.
Yeah, good on you, Dav.
And so, like, you know, whenever there is, like, a wacky hero shooter, I'm like, my ears are perked up a little. Not to say I'm like, and, you know, I'm a little won over by the, like, and what if you were shooting for geeky shit? Like, I know there's, you know, it's an eye-rolling thing where it's like, oh, they're doing it all for a Sonic toy. But it's like, yeah, I would. But I am ultimately kind of coming down the side of, like, oh, this is your wacky character? Are you sure about that? You know, I'm not going to act like I'm not slightly taken in by the notion of an Overwatch alternative, but in its stead, I would recommend Deceive Inc. It is a hero shooter that's probably going to die soon, honestly, but it is kind of fun because it's, like, in the theme of 70s spy movies and exploitation films, and that one came out pretty cool because they, like, shake up objectives connected to different kinds of characters. I think I'm gonna agree to give it death, because, you know, when Sega has, like, IP that's not Sonic, it's always a little interesting, but I don't know if we're in a place where we're ready for, like, the Sega Overwatch.
I mean, Sega has, like, they fucking have Yakuza for an IP, so they can definitely, like, make successful IPs outside of Sonic.
Yeah.
But, like, this ain't it, Chief. This just, like, this does not look good.
No, it's definitely going to die less than a year after launch. This is not going to... Lots of live service games are going that way. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, because people are attached to the ones they play now, and they don't really want to, you know, reset their progress, start from level 1 in a brand new game, so... you know, that's just kind of natural selection for the live shooter, live service games, and I'm very happy about that.
You get what you fucking deserve.
Yeah.
I'm looking out the window wistfully, wondering when multiverses will come back from war.
Never. Never coming back.
WB's got a lot of job openings for game developers.
I feel like they're gonna, like, they can't bring it back without doing, like, a bit huge, like, Barbie expansion, because it's, like, their highest ranking, grossing film of all time, I think.
So they're gonna put in, like, Barbie, Ken, Allen, Weird Barbie.
Will Ferrell CEO. Man, I love all the interviews of everyone in the Barbie cast, like, being like, man, Simu Liu is such a fucking idiot.
Wait, really?
So it was just like, somebody asked, someone asked Margot, which character in Barbie is like, which actor is most like their character? Like, which actor is most like their doll? And she kind of giggles, and she's like, oh, probably Simu. And then I think,
Simu, Emu.
and I think later, like, Simu and Ryan Gosling were in a photo op, and Simu tries to, like, put his arm around Ryan, and he kind of resists.
Yeah.
People don't have nice things to say about Simu, but it reads to me more like he's kind of dumb than, like, mean or anything. Oh, well. Last trailer is for The Continental, and just in case you guys didn't know, just to preserve the IP, we added in the subtitle, From the Universe of John Wick.
Yeah, I give it... I don't know, I feel like it's all going to depend on the fight scenes, and... Right now, like, I don't want to give it a death, because I don't think it looks bad, but I'm just not interested.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give it a life.
Really?
I'm always interested to see more of that universe. I like the world building.
I guess I'm in a weird place where I feel like the special sauce of John Wick is how understated it is, and the more you blow it up, the more... I think there's just a lot of subtlety and a lot of blanks to fill in. How there's, like, in John Wick 2, there's just, like, a round man with a violin, and you know him for a minute, and he's dead. And, like, there's a similar fashion of, like, wacky assassins in this trailer, but I feel as though they're gonna see that they have 10 episodes and go, oh, we can delve into everybody's backstory. It's like, that's not usually what I come to John Wick for.
Isn't this just like a 3-parter?
Oh, well, that does change things. I actually didn't know that.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. Okay, that is slightly... So it's basically a long film, then.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they want to give people a reason to get Peacock.
True. For 3 weeks at a time.
Like, lost $100 million, right?
They're not doing too well. There's too much competition. But, Tommy, are you the type... I forget. Do you like the first John Wick more than, like, the later ones?
Yes.
Okay, I think, yeah, if you're that type of person who likes the kind of more grounded, like you said, understatedness of, like, the first one, and didn't really like the more bombastic, kind of crazy direction they took the last couple, then this series probably doesn't appeal to you, but as someone who personally really liked the last couple more than, like, the first one, this is probably more for me, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. See, knowing it's shorter than I thought it would be actually sates, because I thought it was like, oh, what is this fucking, like, because the trailer for, like, Gen V came out, too, and it was like, oh, fucking X-Men school of all the supers and the boys, and it's like, oh, I was kind of like, oh, what is this gonna be, like, X-Men, but it's John Wick assassins, and all living together? Like, give me a goddamn break, but, like, it sounds like a 3-installment thing is much more reasonable.
Yeah.
Alright, okay. Well, I was gonna give it death, and I feel a little weird flip-flopping so easily, but I'll give it life as well. Knowing that. Will, do we feel ready to move on to your first, item of the day?
Heck yeah. So I'm not sure what inspired me to do this, but I decided to pick up a new show recently. And that show was Spectacular Spider-Man, which I'm going to toast.
Yeah.
So I didn't grow up with this show, but like I know a lot of people like Spectacular Spider-Man. He was in Spider-Verse. And I hear often that it's like the best Spider-Man cartoon, so I'm like, hey, why not? I haven't been too exposed to Spider-Man cartoons, but I can definitely see why people think this one is the best. Basically, every Spider-Man villain, no matter how minor, is in it, like at least for one episode, and I think that's awesome.
Well, they're missing a big one.
Who's that?
Oh, I guess you're not done with the series. Maybe I shouldn't say.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. But yeah, there are a lot of villains that aren't like completely one-to-one on the comics, but I feel like the changes they make work. Like, for example, Venom, Eddie isn't a reporter who gets like shafted by Peter. He was like one of Peter's friends who like worked at a lab, and because Peter is Spider-Man, like so much is getting fucked up, so he's like held a lot of hatred for them. And like I feel like if you're not gonna make Eddie Brock a reporter, that's kind of the way you should do it. I feel like that's just a really great way to connect him to Peter. The Shocker, Montana, is really funny. He's probably one of my favorites on the show. I do really like Venom too, but he's only shown up once. Mysterio is really cool. Pretty much every like single villain on there is either really cool, really fun, or both. I would say my least favorite is probably Electro, just because like he does get kind of the least development out of all of them. Actually, no, my least favorite is the Rhino, because he does get the least development out of all of them. And I also think it's nice that like there aren't any celebrity voices in there. Like it's just voice actors. I feel like nowadays you like look at cartoons and it's like, oh yeah, and you've got this person from this, doing the lead. Which like it can work, but it was just nice being like, oh, that's Ben Diskin. Oh, that's Josh Keaton. Oh, that's Crispin Freeman.
I think
and they all just
isn't Dwight Schultz the Vulture?
I think Robert Englund is.
Oh, that would make sense. Okay.
Which is fucking perfect casting. Yeah, it's just a ton of fun. Great Peter Parker / Spider-Man. I feel like it really captures who he is.
Josh Keaton tends to be like one of my default Spider-Man voices if I'm reading him in my head.
Yeah, I would say when I'm reading Spider-Man, I'm definitely thinking Lowenthal.
No, that's fair.
But him and Josh Keaton do sound very similar in their performances. And they're both fucking incredible. So, yeah, big toast to Spectacular Spider-Man. I'm glad that, like, after Spider-Verse, I'm still able to, like, scratch that Spider-Man itch and get, like, really quality media from it. So, yeah, that's my first toast. I'd love to hear what you guys think of this.
Sorry, you go ahead, Dev.
Sure. I watched the show quite a bit growing up. Cause, initially I watched the 90s show when I was, like, really young. But, then, Spectacular Spider-Man was on. It was on, I think, WB, so it was kind of a weird channel to go to, like, watch that stuff. Because I would typically stick with, like, Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, whatever. But, whenever I could, I would sometimes check the guide, and if Spectacular Spider-Man was on, I was going to watch it. And, initially I wasn't following the story super closely. I just knew that whenever I watched it, I was having a great time because the show was just really kick-ass. Like, the theme song was great, the animation was great, just all sorts of great things about this show that I really loved, and, kind of later on when I started to follow the story a bit more, it was, you know, a little bit of a letdown that they just didn't make another season of this, but it's obviously still a series that a lot of people hold near and dear. With, like you said, he makes a cameo in Across the Spider-Verse, and people have been begging for a season 3, just anything, like, you know, kind of what... I mean, if Clone Wars can get its final season years after Cartoon Network dropped it, I feel like this could happen. But,
honestly, yeah.
If we're getting X-Men...
And especially because
If we're getting an X-Men follow-up all these years later, then anything's possible.
Yeah, and like, I feel like, from what I've heard, the latest, like, Spider-Man cartoons aren't too good.
No, they're not.
So, like, I feel like it's a good idea to bring
Spider-Man
them.
cartoons are not very good, to be frank. Like Neil Patrick Harris.
Oh.
The MTV show. That was really bad. But the 90s one and Spectacular, I think, are both considered, like, the best of the best.
The 90s one has some of the jankiest bullshit in the world, but that kind of makes me love it more, honestly.
It's very campy, and it really, really drives that in, and it's really good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely gonna have to give that one a watch, too. But, yeah, Spider-Man's just so fucking cool. It's nice to have, like, a villain, or not a villain, a hero with, like, such incredible villains, but it never gets, like, too dark. Like, there are serious moments, but you never see, like, you know, Peter truly fall into despair or become, like a fucking Sasuke, basically.
Well, have you gotten the Sinister Six yet?
Yeah, no, I've seen the symbiote suit.
That one, because I think they do a good job with some of the angst in that one.
No, I agree, but that's like one episode.
Sure.
I guess it's more like, it seems like a lot of superhero stuff is like very overly dark, so it's nice to, like, even the dark moments being fun.
Yeah.
Like, I had a lot of fun with the symbiote stuff.
Absolutely. It's not... I will say Venom is my favorite Spider-Man character, which is why I'm so fucking picky about my versions of Venom. And this one isn't my favorite. I a little bit disagree with your I just don't share your enthusiasm for him being a friend of Peter's, because I feel what's so great about Eddie Brock is that he's just the pettiest man alive, and I think that's better if it's someone he barely fucking knows who almost inadvertently ruined his life. But I think it has my favorite Sandman ever, and that's some of my favorite shit in the world. I like Tombstone a lot in it as well.
Oh yeah, Tombstone is like probably the best he's ever been.
And mostly the reason for that is that for some reason they didn't have the rights for Kingpin, so they wrote Tombstone like he's Kingpin.
See, that makes a lot of sense about why they call him Big Man.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, this is a really good Tombstone. It makes sense that, like... It makes a lot of sense now that I know that they were supposed to get Kingpin.
Yeah.
There's a couple villains that they don't get to, because Greg Weisman's curse is he makes 2 seasons of the best animation you've ever seen, and then he's, for one thing or another, he's never allowed to properly finish it.
That sucks.
It's Gargoyles, Young Justice, and this. The same thing happened to all of them.
Well, I guess I'll swing it on over to Dav.
Okay. First thing here is going to be a toast for Scott Pilgrim, the comic series by Brian Lee O'Malley, that good old Canadian cartoonist.
Yeah.
Scott DiPiglio?
Scott DiPiglio's precious little life. So I recently got the full color box set for this, and it had been sitting on my shelf for some time. But then the trailer for the show dropped, and that got me really excited, because I my initial exposure to this series was the movie, which I think is true for a lot of people. It's just that movie that kind of introduces you to this wacky world. But as much as I love that movie, I felt like I wanted more out of it. You know, there's just like these characters really stand out in any adaptation you put them in. And so I was excited to kind of see how they look in the comic, and so I sat down and I read through the entire thing in a couple nights. It's really not very long. You could probably knock it out in like an afternoon.
Oh yeah.
And it is honestly fantastic. It's very like the humor is something that I feel like if you're looking at something from the mid 2000s that's trying to be comedic, especially if it's related to gaming in any tangential way.
Fucking Control Alt
Delete, or just anything like that. And this very much circumvents that. The humor has aged surprisingly well. There's a lot about it that even if you feel like it's definitely going for that mid 2000s like raw XD humor, it still like does it so well that it's still funny.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I really was surprised by that because again, a lot of stuff from the mid 2000s that did that type of humor has not aged well at all.
I would say, even like before I knew about Scott Pilgrim, I'd seen like like pieces of the comic, and I always thought like the comic art style is probably like one of the best.
Oh yeah.
Like it's just something is just so kind of satisfying about those character designs.
It is, like, it's really nice that it's, like, deceptively simple, because it's an art style that, like, you can look at, or, like, you know, even if you're, like, a kid, you can look at this art style and just, like, fuck, I'm gonna draw that. And it's, I guess there's apparently, like, sort of a running joke that a lot of people have tried to replicate that to absolutely no success at all.
Because it's mostly indie comics doing that, so I don't want to, like, punch down, but I can think of a couple comics where I'm like, you are not Brian Lee O'Malley.
Yeah. It's like, it's simple, but it's done very intentionally. You have to really be trying to pull this off, and it does it very well. Because, I mean, objectively speaking, there are panels with just the most horrific anatomy you've ever seen, with, like, legs that are, like, twice the size of the torsos, and just... But it still works, because it's just the way that the art style and the world kind of works. You're just down with it.
What I've always been, like, so in love with about Scott Pilgrim is how, like, even characters who should be incidental, they manage to cram so much, like, interesting nuance into. Like, there's, like, there's a barista who's kind of mean to Scott, but there's, like, actually, like, 5 things that go on her OkCupid profile, and everyone's memorable to that degree.
Like Lisa Miller.
I think I think so. Lisa.
I'm thinking like that as another example of that. Lisa Miller.
Oh right, right.
Who just kind of initially appears in like these flashbacks, and it does not show up in the movie at all. So that was really strange. But she's like a really good part of the series, even if she's only there for like a couple volumes.
I guess we'll see her in the anime then, huh?
I hope so. That's kind of like after reading this comic, I am approaching this new show kind of with a little bit of caution, but a lot of optimism, because of course it looks fantastic, and I'm really happy they got the whole cast from the movie back for this. But as far as how they choose to go about adapting the comic, could be a bit worrying. I hope they kind of get the best of the movie and the comic together.
O'Malley has specifically said this is not one-to-one the movie or the comic. It's its own thing even. Like, it's another adaptation.
Fair.
Yeah.
Huh.
I hope it adapts. Because there's a lot of stuff in the comic that I really want to see. Like, there's a lot of more stuff with Envy. There's more stuff with the twins.
Well, maybe my favorite character in the Scott Pilgrim verse is fucking Todd Ingram, but only because, like, the comic and the movie put together make him, like, honestly the most devious villain. I think he should be the main villain a little more than Gideon at a certain point, honestly. But he's also like, he's almost Homelander in the comics.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, because it's the way that the comic does that compared to the movie is like, you know, the movie adapts the battle kind of as one thing, but the comic kind of like starts that battle and then just suddenly stops, and then there's just a bunch of character building before it finally finishes out. And I really hope to see that in the show because it's really good.
Yeah.
I think the only thing about the comic that I really didn't like compared to the movie was who's the actor again?
Lucas Lee.
Chris Evans. Yeah,
Lucas Lee.
The comic book fight of that is really underwhelming, but the movie version is like really well done. So I hope there's a bit more of that in the series.
I think the comic is great, and I'm in a weird... Like you, I saw the movie first, before I even knew it was a comic, I think. I almost feel like the movie, in some ways, is, a bit essential to the comic. And I mostly mean that in, like, superficial ways, in the way Edgar Wright kind of fleshed things out. Like, I remember reading the Matthew Patel fight in the comic, and how they still try to sing... And, like, obviously you can't hear a comic, so it comes off so fucking strange, honestly. and then I'm like, if I didn't know the song by heart in my head from the movie, because I've seen it so many... Because it's one of my all-time favorite movies, and I've seen it so many times. This would be, like, the most awkward spread of pages in the world. So I feel like having those voices and the imagery of the film to kind of... paint the limits of a comic with kind of helps it a lot, which isn't to say it was ever like bad or anything, but I almost feel like the two are a bit inseparable that way, because there's things you get from the comic that you don't get from the film as well that kind of help you fill in those blanks.
Yeah, you really should experience both if you want to get like the full Scott Pilgrim experience, because they both have their own flaws and setbacks, and then also really strong points that are brought out, and that's my hope for the series, is that, you know, you get both of those in one. Just the best of all the different adaptations, but, I'm certain I'm going to love this series because it's Scott Pilgrim, and it just looks like there's already so much love put into it. But, again, you know, just going off of this comic, I really want to see anything that's done with it approached in a way that is kind of optimal from now on, because like you said, it's the movie and the comic together are kind of this complete experience, and the only way you can really go from there is by taking the best of both and combining them.
Yeah. Man, yeah, that has the potential to be like my show of the year. We're getting Scott Pilgrim and Invincible season 2 in the same fucking month. I'm gonna lose my goddamn mind.
Oh, that's insane.
And, when does Castlevania Nocturne come out? Is that around the same time?
I think that's September. They should have saved it for October.
Banger rest of the year.
Yeah. Right, no, I keep a calendar of releases I'm looking forward to, and November has like 4 things each Friday, because everyone wants to do shit on Friday. Oh, man.
Yeah, just a ton of good shows. A ton of good games. I don't think there's a ton of good movies left, but...
I mean, especially with the strikes, but that's not the fucking actor's fault.
Of course.
No.
There's a couple movies that... It's nothing where I'm like, oh, this is my... We still need a release date for Boy and the Heron in the US. I could see that being like a weird holiday thing.
Yeah.
Godzilla -1.
That's like December 1st, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a couple, like, David Fincher's gonna have a new movie in November, and it has no trailer at the moment.
Huh.
Yeah. The Killer. I think it's November. I hope I'm not misremembering.
Well, anyway, speaking of David Fincher, I'm pretty much done talking about Scott Pilgrim, so if nobody else has anything to say, I'll pass it off to Tommy.
Sweet. All right. I also finished reading.
You sounded like Peter Griffin there.
Jay Lois.
I really hope you're going to talk about the thing I thought you're going to talk about, because otherwise the speaking of David Fincher thing isn't going to make any sense.
Uh,
Now it's like a fucking quick time event for Tommy.
I'm like, oh, I was gonna save that one for last because I love it so much, but I can talk about it now if we're with that in germane to that segue.
I mean, you can talk about whatever you want. We can just say that the segue was like a wormhole to a later point in the podcast or something.
It took me like, I was like, I didn't watch any Fincher. Oh, I see. Because I'm gonna be watching all the Fincher movies, because Blank Check is covering him next. There's a few I still have to see. But you're referring to my current favorite film of the year, but I love that one so much, I feel like it might be hard to stop me. I'm gonna save that for my last one.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I also finished reading a very good comic book though. I read the complete Flintstones comic, the Hanna-Barbera, because it was around 2017 or so that Hanna-Barbera was giving out all their IPs, I think to be published by DC, because it's all Warner. 2016, I am finding, is when it was. And so Mark Russell and Steve Pugh teamed up to do the Flintstones. And I've talked about the Snagglepuss comic on my channel before. I have a whole video about it. That one's still probably my favorite. And there's a few I kind of fell off of. There was like a post-apocalyptic Wacky Races and Scooby-Doo Apocalypse. But the one that got like so much heat was the Flintstones. And it is really fucking good. If you're wondering what the hell a modern, like, somewhat serious Flintstones comic is, it is a biting satire of capitalism and religion and mortality and life as we know it, and it is genuinely very thought-provoking. And, like, people, like, you've probably seen the meme
All
panel.
with a main character named Fred Flintstone.
Bonnie!
Can I share that Tommy was texting me just like random panels from that, and I open my phone and I get one where Fred Flintstone says the sentence, "We caused a genocide, Barney."
Man, yeah, so Fred Flintstone in this is a war vet. Fred and Barney both fought in the Caveman Wars. And, you know, their Buffalo Lodge is their PTSD meetings. Other than that, it's kind of... Because, you know, it still has very Flintstone-y humor in that it's like, oh, what if this modern thing was in the Stone Age? But it's much more, like, bitingly satirical. Like, there's one where a news report comes out where they're like, everybody's new favorite thing is buying crap. Like, they don't know, like, they're just buying things they don't need. And, you know, it's in Flintstones, so it's all animals. You know, because, like, in the Flintstones, like, oh, the vacuum is a little mammoth, and the bowling ball is an armadillo. And so they buy things, and after they all go to sleep at night, or whenever they leave the room, the appliances creep out and, like, discuss their trauma. And Bowling Ball the Armadillo is like, I don't know what will sate his rage. He keeps fucking throwing me down the alley and into the pins. Which
okay, see, I know that's, like, meant to be a serious thing, but, like, you gotta, like, kind of laugh at a character.
No, yeah.
Ball the Armadillo.
It's genuinely...
The comic is self-aware of that.
Yeah. It's aware of, like, the absurdity of the situation, but it's also, like... It's kind of like the caveman equivalent of, like, how many like, people did unpaid slave labor to make my fucking iPhone, you know what I mean? Oh my... Yeah, shit like that. There's an amazing fucking character who is, like, the pastor of, like, the caveman religion. And every week he just, like, finds an animal and names it and declares it their new god. So they're like, I found this mammoth outside. This is Gerald. He's going to be our deity. And he's kind of like, he was the proprietor of religion. And he's just trying this out. He's just cave pastor. And there's a point where, cavemen, as they're wont to do, are, like, hostile dicks to each other. And they're like, so what's Gerald gonna do for me if I don't hit my neighbor upside the head when I'm mad at him? And he kind of just goes off, okay, look, if you aren't nice to each other, then, I don't know, Gerald throws you into a pit of fire after you die. Fuck it. And at a certain point, he has his confessional booth. And the people are like, I don't want to be thrown into the fiery pit, so I'd like to do something to make up for my sins. But I'm very busy. Can you just take this money and, like, do something for me? Donate to the church? And he's like, yeah, I guess. And this starts this huge chain reaction where cavemen are lining up being like, I killed someone, here's some money. And he's like, no, this is getting out of hand. Oh, man. It's
that's a really clever idea, but that's fucking freaky.
It's like, it's a very telling of, it says a lot about society, but, like, genuinely, it really does.
Wait, Tommy, tell him about Yabba Dabba Doo.
So, you're all aware of Fred Flintstone's, famous catchphrase, Yabba Dabba Doo. This is the nonsense phrase that they use to stave off PTSD when you are a Water Buffalo Lodge veteran. Yeah.
God, imagine just, like, seeing a fucking Iraq veteran just, like, leaning over, yabba dabba doo, yabba dabba doo,
yabba dabba doo. I think the best way I can end my little plug of the Flintstones is by reading a small monologue that Fred Flintstone genuinely says about can I find it? Oh, here it is. Okay, I'm not amending a word. This is all spoken by Fred Flintstone. Marriage is like insurance. You only enter into a lifetime commitment because you're afraid of the future. But does being married mean she'll love me forever? Or is it just my attempt to keep her from finding someone better? Marriage is really a sacred bond, or just the illusion of security?
Huh.
Yeah, I don't know, Fred, but I want your Fruity Pebbles.
Oh.
I feel like in that continuity, it would be like, yeah, sorry, Wilma, I'm a little, like, low. Barney got the electric chair for stealing my cereal.
This reminds me of a caveman comics IP I've never mentioned or brought to any of our bets yet.
What's that?
You made a caveman comic?
Oh, yeah, back when I was like 10.
What was it called?
Cave Dorks.
Damn. That's gonna be the last kill for those because you fucking killed Tommy.
I still have a drawing I did of one of them.
Oh, you gotta, like, fucking send that to us.
That's the name of the episode.
Cave door.
It's just like
it's steal it and turn it into like a anti-walkable city thing somehow.
Because everything was walkable for cavemen. They turned out fine.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, well, these aren't your ordinary cavemen, Tommy. These are the cave doors.
I'm mostly... It's mostly like the sheer duration with which you said it.
Cave doors.
You knew exactly what was on the other end of that reveal.
Yeah, it was the only IP I made that wasn't part of the David cinematic universe.
Okay, all right. I'm alive. I'm good. I'm ready to pass the sentient, miserable bowling ball to Will.
Okay, so this is a roast, and I'm gonna go ahead and roast a comic called Cave Dorks. Okay?
What are the main characters' names?
So we've got Flugly and Pepto-Bismol, and, yeah, it's just, like, it's really weird how, like, they're siblings, but, I mean, let's not get into that. Anyways, the thing I'm actually gonna, toast is the Twisted Metal TV series.
Hell yes.
Tommy and I are big into Twisted Metal. That's one of the things we like bonded over in high school.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when they released the trailer, it didn't look very good.
No, we got that.
Watching
it wasn't a trailer. It was that first clip at Comic-Con that like was the worst first impression possible.
Yeah.
Not
with, like, Sweet Tooth singing the thong song.
Not Comic-Con. What was it? Not the.
Well, it was one of them.
Yeah, one of the big events. Yeah.
Either way, the show kicks ass. It brings in characters from every Twisted Metal game, and they're kind of like their own people. But I think it works really well. Like this time, the pastor is this like insane cult leader. Sweet Tooth was a like sitcom star that got jealous of his like animal sidekick and killed him. John Doe is still John Doe. We don't quite know much about him. But then they bring in characters like Granny Dread from Twisted Metal 3 and fucking Pizza Boy.
From the those are like, and we have to acknowledge that those are from like they're bringing in games from the Twisted Metal games that were briefly handled by another studio that everybody hates for being so weird.
Yeah.
And they just pay it perfect lip service in these.
But yeah, honestly, like Sweet Tooth, Twisted Metal has always worked when it's like, it's got a good balance of like funny and kind of serious stuff. And I feel like the show does it really well. There's a lot of just like really funny parts. There's a part where John Doe like shoots someone in the ass, like who's on the top of his car,
right.
And the blood like goes down on his windshield, and he's wiping the blood, and he's so happy because he got new windshield wipers. But then you have like really cool romances, like Flower Power and Twister. And you've got like, there's some new characters that like might not totally be new. But either way, like every character is still like fun and has its place. The villain is really good. The sheriff played by Thomas Hayden
That's
Church.
Agent Stone. He is fucking amazing.
Yeah. And I think the best thing I can say about this is I watched this and I watched this, and after watching it I was like, oh my god, Anthony Mackie fucking hated acting in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because he is having like so much fun here. It's night and day.
Yeah.
And even characters like, you know, Agent Stone, who are played by like really good actors, have their like silly moments, but they're always like played with such sincerity. And there's just like so many cool moments. Like Agent Stone is like gives like a criminal a gun, and they're like, you can either kill yourself or we'll kill you. The choice is up to you. And I feel like that's really good, and it didn't like completely blow its load on the first season. Calypso, who, if you don't know, is like the kind of big boss of it, he's there, but he's not like the main villain. And I think that's really cool, you know, build up Calypso. Yeah, overall, I was just really happy with it. It was a ton of fun. You know, there were some things that it was like, okay, wait a sec, what are they doing? But overall, I think it's probably one of the better video game adaptations. Probably the best that's like takes not a ton from its source material. Like it doesn't do like the car tournament, but I think it works. I think it's really good.
It kind of like reminds me of like how the 90s would adapt a video game, where you kind of very practically cherry pick details and iconography, but put it in a slightly different premise. But in a way that works out pretty well, because this is all about like, it's basically Mad Max, where it's like the drivers are all trying to survive an apocalypse, which is like vaguely a thing in the games, but it's much more like, this is our car tournament for a wish. But they capture the core themes really well, because Twisted Metal narratively is about want, its characters making wishes, and, you know, you could say something similar about characters trying to achieve civilization in an apocalypse, and I was like, I was very resistant to the changes at first, but the more I got used to it, I was like, I'm actually, you know, I'm pretty much, like, Sweet Tooth, I was almost like, no fucking way, dude, like, you're not Sweet Tooth, because they were writing him much more comedically, and I've said this before, they're writing him like he's the Joker a bit more, and there's, like, certain tenets where I'm like, Sweet Tooth in the games would not do that, but the more they developed him and did cool things with him, I was just kind of on board with it. Like, it was just ultimately very endearing.
Yeah, no, and, like, surprisingly, Will Arnett did a really good job as Sweet Tooth.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I agree that, like, it is, that's an interesting point you bring up about, like, the 90s video game adaptation. Because I feel like most of those were, like, bad, but Twisted Metal, like, kind of makes itself so cheesy that it works. So, like, even though there are these serious moments, you have, you know, car battles and huge over-the-top, like, explosions and Sweet Tooth murdering people and then, like, stinging. It just really works. It's really fun.
It's incredibly good. Fuck, what else was I gonna say? And, like, you know, you can definitely tell the people involved were trying to be faithful. I think there's a difference between faithful and accurate. And the two things don't always overlap or mean something is good by overlapping. And, you know, no matter how different the show got, they acknowledge that Mike and Stu are from Seattle, which you would only ever know if you read the manual of Twisted Metal 2. That's nowhere in the actual game. They peeled through the fucking manuals, they got the small details, and they're building to something that's growing more and more. It's almost, without spoiling much, it starts to feel like an origin for the games, kind of, and that storyline.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah, I was like texting you and I was like, yeah, it's not great, but I always say, it lends itself well to binge watching if I don't want to admit I like it, but I can't stop watching it. And then I watched it a whole second time with you and I'm like, oh, this shit fucking rules.
Yeah, no, it's a ton of fun. I'm glad I didn't let, I'm glad that, you know, neither of us let Flip, like, truly deter us.
John Doe.
Speaking of...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say John Doe is maybe one of my favorite heroes of the year, if not just because I've always really liked... He's a character from Twisted Metal Black who gets maybe the most bummer ending of all time, so seeing him kind of redeemed in this was very cathartic.
Yeah, and it'll be nice to see, like, what they do with him.
Absolutely.
Anyways, the next person to compete in Twisted Metal, and by Twisted Metal I mean talking about the toast and roast thing, is Dav.
Yeah, I got no horse in this Twisted Metal race, but I will say that I wish the Anthony Mackie backshots were a POV shot instead of a side view.
You mean when he shoots the guy?
Jesus, Dav.
Yeah. Anyway, speaking of Anthony Mackie backshots, I'm going to talk about 12 Angry Men.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Which is a movie we kind of watched on a whim for one of our movie nights, and it turned out to be basically a masterpiece.
Yeah, big agree on that.
12 Angry Men, I think, is a movie that has been getting a bit of a resurgence lately as people have been kind of seeing how well it's aged. It is a film that is carried so fantastically well by each and every single one of its performers. But it's a very basic premise, basically just a 12 jurors, the 12 angry men of the time.
And they happen to be pretty angry.
They are quite angry. They are basically sitting in on a homicide case, which is probably why they're angry, because those things can take weeks. But they basically, we kind of start the movie at the end of the trial. They've had all the evidence presented to them. They are basically convening to make their decision on whether or not the 18-year-old who who is on trial should be, held accountable and sentenced to death for the electric chair or not. And
Not just like Barney when he fucking stole that cereal.
Yeah.
What a
Exactly.
cave dork.
Yeah, he's yeah. God, I never should have mentioned that. That's good. That IP is gonna be ripped from my hands soon, and then we'll see what happens to it.
For the folks at home, whenever we play games such as whenever we go bowling or mini golfing, we put one of our IPs up for wager, something we've created, and perhaps hope to ambitiously breathe life into one day.
Yeah, like, to be perfectly honest, technically, Tommy doesn't even own his own fucking YouTube channel
Yeah.
anymore because he lost it in a bet. I just think the person who won it forgot and, like, never really cashed in.
I think Troy or Brandon won Striker Star 19 in a game of mini golf at Boondocks, and I'm just kind of floating under the radar, hoping they don't notice.
Yeah. Anyway, 12 Angry Men, 1957 masterpiece film. It doesn't have any cave dorks in it. But anyway, this 18-year-old, he's up for trial. He could get the death sentence. He's specifically on trial for murdering his father, potentially, with a knife. And pretty much everything seems very clear-cut. Practically all the evidence and testimonials and everything, they got several witnesses in. It all points to the outcome that he basically did it. He's looking very guilty. So the jurors, they all convene to kind of talk about it, give their decision. Most of them are pretty much of the opinion that it's going to be very quick. They're just going to say, because, obviously this decision needs to be unanimous. If any of them disagree, they're going to be in a stalemate, and it's going to drag on for a while.
One of them is looking to go to the ball game.
One of them wants to get to his ball game. Most of them want to get back to their jobs and their families and stuff. But, just as they're making their decision, one of them decides he's going to vote not guilty. And leads to basically a couple-hour movie of them debating it. And just over the course of the film, slowly they are all changing their minds. It's a very progressive movie for when it came out. This is from 1957. I think it's based on like a play or something.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much of that carries
Yeah.
over. But for when it came out, it is extremely progressive in its approach to things like race and of course capital punishment. I am personally somebody who is completely against capital punishment. I don't think the state should have the ability to execute anybody for any reason. But I feel like this movie definitely seems to have sort of a message kind of like that, where it's like, okay, if we have even the slightest doubt that this person committed this murder, do we really want to risk even the 1% of a 1% chance that we're sending an innocent person to die? And that is really the big theme of this movie, and I think that even if you aren't necessarily as steadfast against capital punishment as like I am, you will still probably get a ton out of this movie, because you might even think, like, in this specific case, maybe the evidence is stacked against it, and if there's even the slightest doubt, you really maybe don't want to potentially send this innocent kid off to die. And it ends in a way that, I'm not gonna go out of my way to spoil it, but it is a very old movie, but, it's never revealed whether or not the kid actually did it. And that, I think, is such a great part of the movie, that, like, okay, we're not gonna say whether or not anybody is correct. It's all about the morals of it, of whether or not there's a doubt. Even if he did it, it's probably still the right thing to do to not send him to die. And there are just, of course, some fantastic performances from everybody. There's some fantastic cinematography. There is one particular shot in this movie that just had me practically falling out of my chair. It was so good. You all know what I'm talking about. There's one iconic scene in this. But yeah, I fucking love this movie. I love everything it stands for. So I don't know. What did you guys think of it?
It joined my perfect movies list. I agree. I think every single actor in that is just so fucking amazing. Like, every single one of them is kind of like Oscar-worthy performance. Because, like, in the greater scheme of things, it is just like a scene in a room, right? And sometimes it goes outside of the room, but most of it just takes place in, like, the same room. And so I was expecting it to be like a movie where it's like, okay, yeah, this is an important movie, but, like, it's kind of boring. But I was just so enthralled by every single, like, shot and time they spoke, and as they unveiled, like, more and more of the I guess not mystery, but, like, more of the case. Yeah, I think it's one of those movies that everyone should see, not just because it's, like, really good, but I think it just kind of perfectly shows that, like, hey, you know, like what Dad was saying, and, like, you know, on a more basic moment, maybe we shouldn't, like, just jump to conclusions without, like, talking about things for serious stuff.
And, like, speaking to what you said, like, I think this is just such a, like, delicate text that could so easily just be, like, boring or stupid, but it's very eloquently directed and acted. And what I think of is that before I ever saw either movie adaptation, there's one in the 90s, not as good. Before I ever saw any of the movies, I saw a stage adaptation, and it was mostly an alright adaptation, but the production, I'm thinking of the point where I think it's juror number 3 just goes on his racist tirade, and he slowly realizes nobody wants to stick with him at that point. And in the stage production I saw, every single juror stands up and, like, just fully physically 180s and turns around. And I was like, this is fucking ridiculous. What are you guys doing? And the movie does almost the same thing, but the actors just make distinct choices that sell it really well.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a performance, like, oh, they're doing this, like, and this is a theater thing. It just, like, seems like they're all turning away from him.
Absolutely. Man, and, you know, and like you said, like, not, like, it just kind of shines a light on, like, the casual evil of our society, honestly. Like, my mind goes back to the baseball guy all the fucking time, because it's like, you know, he's like, it seems pretty open and shut, and I have a place to be. Are you fucking kidding me? And it, like, makes him seem like the most selfish prick in the world. But at the same time, I've been at work when it's 3:30, and I'm like, fuck, there's a Nintendo Direct in 45 minutes. I'm not gonna finish my grading, you know? Like, it's just like, yeah, it does shine a light on how, like, operations like these are so significantly more important than we give credit for.
Yeah.
Yeah, as someone who has been on a jury, I know that complete mentality of once all the evidence has been presented, you get into the room with everybody else, and everybody just wants to go home, and you do not want to be that person who makes it not a unanimous agreement. Or everybody else is going to hate you, no matter what the stakes. My stakes were thankfully pretty low. I was not on a murder case. It was just like a guy who he was formerly I'm pretty sure I'm allowed to talk about this.
I was gonna say, I don't know if this is legal to discuss, but
I think it's fine to talk about it as long as I'm not giving any names or anything.
Yeah.
It's like basically a dude who was a felon. He had previously committed a crime, and in Colorado it's illegal to own a gun if you have previously committed a crime, and he got a hold of one anyway because in 2016 the killer clowns thing was going around, and he wanted to take his daughter trick-or-treating and keep her safe, so he bought a gun. And yeah, we unanimously found him guilty because obviously he was found with the gun.
Yeah.
But you know, it's like if this was a higher stakes case, then would we have done the same thing? We just wanted to get the hell out of there and get back with our lives. That's kind of the flaw in the jury system, is it's a bunch of regular people who have been plucked out of their daily lives, and they just want to get back to it, and this trial is ultimately nowhere near as important to them as it is to the person whose life is at stake. So, how do you deal with that? And like you said, that baseball guy is the perfect representation of that. Somebody who has something completely trivial he just wants to get to, while an 18-year-old kid is potentially facing the end of his life.
It's truly, we had our movie night where we watched this and thoroughly enjoyed what is considered one of the greatest films and works of art ever. Do we want to share with the class how I proceeded to ruin the evening? Immediately after?
Watching Monster House afterwards?
Oh, what did we watch between, Will? Because of course, my brain is broken to the point that we watched 12 Angry Men, and I'm like, there's a Family Guy episode that parodies this.
God, the fucking not guilty. Seeing that from the original movie and the Family Guy episode, it just felt like sacrilegious.
Family Guy is like one of the stupidest shows of all time in every metric, but every time I sit down to watch it, I'm like laughing my fucking ass off in 5 minutes.
It's something you've got to be so ashamed to enjoy it, but you can't help but enjoy it sometimes.
And to the point, I think it's the notion of 12 different personalities all using different tactics to escape a situation is so fucking perfect that it's no wonder it's there's a Hey Arnold episode kind of about it. There's damned as I am to mention this person, there's kind of a phenomenal episode of Amy Schumer's Comedy Central show where it's 12 TV executives in 12 Angry Men style debating if Amy Schumer is hot enough to be on TV. And it's Paul Giamatti and 11 other actors being listen, when it's 8 p.m., you're gonna be a little bit drunk, and when you see her on TV, there's a chance you'll be mistaken. I think that just... Sorry, you go ahead. I've derailed us enough.
I just, aside from the obvious parodies that this has inspired in a lot of properties after this, I don't think I ever want to see any other version of this, because I cannot possibly imagine anything better than this movie. Especially as a stage play, I cannot possibly see this. This movie is, it's claustrophobic. It's shot super well. There's a lot of intention behind the way everything is set up. I cannot possibly see this being good from you, watching from the outside and just, looking from a single angle the entire time. I just could not imagine that being very good, even if, the performances in, a stage play for this are good. There's just so much about this movie that needs to be there that I cannot see working anywhere else.
Yeah. No, it's just one of those movies that there is literally nothing you can add to make it better.
I already gave away the reason the 90s version should probably be dismissed is that they changed the racist juror, I believe it's juror number 3, to be, instead of, it's usually a white man who hates, I think, is it a black boy who's committed of the crime, or a Hispanic boy?
It was a Hispanic in the movie, right?
I think so.
This one, I think he is, yeah.
But they swap it around.
He's like an immigrant in this one.
Yeah. But they swap it around in the 90s adaptation, so the juror who's motivated by racism is played by a black man who hates white people. And it's one of the most awkward things I've ever seen put to screen.
Yeah, that's really strange. There's a lot of, stuff to hate about doing an adaptation of a classic that, obviously, with as many remakes as we're getting lately, it's been said, everybody knows. But, I think specifically trying to remake this is such a stupid idea. I don't know why anybody would even try.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
but at the same time, it's like, so many people make fan films that are like trying to go for and be something big, like Spider-Man Lotus, for example. Or you don't have a big budget, but you want to make a Hollywood type of film. I think if you're going to do that, you should make something like this that is intimate, and you don't need a big budget. You just need a good script, and you need to try. Like, anybody could have made this. This could have been like a YouTube thing.
And like, I agree with everything you're saying, and also like, but if someone asked me, Tommy, I'm gonna do 12 Angry Men on my iPhone, I would like leap at the fucking chain.
I don't literally mean they should make 12 Angry Men. I just mean that a movie that is just about people talking or something.
Yeah.
Like, this type of movie that is very down to earth and real and has a message is something that people should be making in like college instead of like the next big Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, love this movie. That's all I got for that. So off to you, Sherman.
All right, gentlemen, I have been playing Pikmin 4. And let me tell you, this was my most anticipated game of the year at a certain point. And let me tell you, this was scarily close to a roast. There's actually things, because Pikmin 3 was my introduction to the Pikmin franchise, and that's one of my favorite game experiences probably ever. I still have to play 1 and 2. I'm sure people are going to clutch their pearls hearing that. But 3, I think, is such a great version of what that is. There are things about... So here's the thing about 4, is that the initial campaign is a bit of a boner killer compared to 3. The core gameplay is largely the same, but...
Pikmin 3 made you horny?
Oh, you know what I mean. I guess the thing about 3, there's two big things about 4 that I think set it behind 3, and they're almost set dressing, but they go a long way. The core gameplay is largely the same, except for some small changes. What sucks is, so in Pikmin is all about, largely it's about collecting treasure. You find an item of certain size, you throw an appropriate number of Pikmin who hoist it above their heads and carry it back, and at the end of every mission day of like a 10-minute period in a certain area, you look at all the fucking shit you've collected, and it's very satisfying. And in Pikmin 3, every treasure was a fruit or a vegetable. And the reason for... And I sound fucking insane. The reason for that...
Treasure, it's like, it's a fruit or a vegetable, okay?
But the specific reason for that is that every fruit or vegetable you collected was another day you could live. Because you would bring it back to base, and there's this amazingly satisfying bit where you see the fruit you collected get ground into a juice that gets stored on a shelf with all the different colors of juices you have. And if you've collected 26 days of juice, you can carry on your mission for 26 more. And when you run out, you're fucking done. And so collecting treasure in that way just felt so satisfying and so crucial. Whereas in this, you can go on as long as you want. Like, the food scarcity is not an element at all. So the treasures have a wider variety. It's like sometimes it's food, but sometimes it's a Game Boy, and it's like, you know, old objects. I didn't feel that same like, oh, I've found more life when I pick up like a peach in the middle of the field, you know what I mean? And I think that was no small part of what made Pikmin 3 so like such a distinctly satisfying experience. And the other thing that sucks about 4 is that in Pikmin 3, you have 3 main characters. It's Alf, Brittany, and I'm forgetting the name of the last one. But they have their solid dynamic. Alf is like the newcomer, Brittany's a little more experienced, and then the older dude is a bit more of a blowhard. This game has like an expanded cast of like 10 to 20 characters, and I barely give a shit about any of them.
That doesn't sound like a good idea at all.
No. And it's because no small part of the mission is rescuing castaways, but, you know, you'll rescue them and they'll, like, start to talk to you and they kind of have a thing, and it's like, I'm the one who likes animals, and it's like, oh, I'm the scaredy one. It's like, I don't really give a shit. I can't remember half of you. Where's my friends from last time? So those two things together almost made the core campaign kind of a bummer. The post-game is like where the game really opens up, and I was really happy, and I'm still playing it to this day. I was really happy to find that was the case, because these are the biggest fucking environments for exploration, and they're full of fucking shit to dig up. There's like points where, it's the kind of game where you'll come across a watermelon, and you need 1,000 Pikmin to lift it. And you're like, I can literally only have 100 out. But you can start to, but purple Pikmin have the strength of 10, so I can, like, figure out some math there. If I have all 100 purple Pikmin. But I don't have anywhere near that many purple Pikmin. I have to come back and, like, when I find those certain items. It's the kind where it's like, you'll be able to go back to level 1 with the resources you didn't have before, and shit opens up. They'll just have it ready for you, and I find that, extremely worthwhile. I think that's really the strong point of this game, is once you beat the main story, you have that opportunity with all the shit you've amassed to do insane fucking exploration. My favorite level, because, the Pikmin are tiny, and you are tiny. So, and I've told you guys about Hamster Core, where I'm comforted.
Marcel the Shell.
Yeah, I'm comforted by tiny.
So she just died off screen.
You're ruining my favorite movie! But I'm distinctly comforted by tiny characters, because there's something very soothing to me about the idea that you could live in an apartment I have now, and it's like a country, like you could just explore. And I call that feeling Hamster Core, where it's like you're in this small space, but there's still things to find. And one of the levels in this is like an abandoned kitchen. Like it's just like a suburban house where you are tiny Pikmin people, and you are going through mouse holes and turning on the stove to find items, and like digging through the freezer to find ice Pikmin. It's so fucking good. There's like weird monsters between the cushions. It's fucking great. They added in Ochi, who's the big dog, who's maybe a little creepy looking. But I find him endearing. I do think there's weird things with Ochi in that he's the only way. So you create a character. I'm always about to call the protagonist Olimar, but it's you. You can't jump, and the only way you can jump is by riding on Ochi's back and getting him to jump. So there's certain areas you can't reach without jumping, and I'm trying to articulate the best I can. There's areas where you kind of have to cheat, because like, there's certain ladders you can climb up, but Ochi can't follow. And to reach an item you need, you have to jump. But I got on the couch without Ochi. How do I jump across? You enter a cave where it's kind of like a dungeon in Zelda. And when you enter a cave, Ochi teleports to you. So the cheat is to enter a cave while you're in this weird spot, which will teleport Ochi to you and give you the ability to jump. And at that point, I'm like, that is kind of a long walk for a short drink of water. Like, why can't, at that point, just make Ochi able to go up the fucking ladder? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That does seem a little frustrating.
Yeah, that's kind of the one big sticking point about the gameplay, but I think it's wonderful for exploring after the fact. I think Pikmin 3, as much as, like, that was such a strong experience, but it's very, very short. Like, I remember beating it and being like, oh wait, what? That's it? What the fuck? But this has, like, completely opened up, and I don't see myself being like, oh, done for, like, a while. 'Cause, like, every time you do a level of Pikmin, you get 5 minutes to explore an area, and that's considered a day of exploring. And your journal kind of logs. Day 1, you found this. Day 2, you found this. I beat Pikmin 3 in probably like 21 days of exploration. And I love that game, but it did feel like, okay, I can kind of put this down now. I am on day, I want to say 60 of Pikmin 4 exploration. And I don't see myself putting it down definitively, per se. Yeah. So I still... And that sounds weird to say when I ultimately still like 3 better, but I think 3 just has that more solid narrative that the starvation aspect places in, whereas this is like completely like the world is your oyster and there's so much you can do. So that's where, if you're bummed out by the initial campaign like I was, hang in there is my recommendation.
Pikmin's a series that's always really interested me, because it's like, you know, an RTS, but like a very interesting take on that idea. Mm-hmm. And also the fact that Miyamoto was like so crazy about the series and like still is.
Oh yeah.
Is fascinating. But I'm planning to start from the first one and kind of go up just to kind of see how the gameplay changes.
Absolutely. That's probably
It does. It seems like it would definitely be my type of game. It seems like kind of a time investment too, especially the second one, from what I hear, is like brutally difficult sometimes. So
there's a certain, like, I think you and I, Dav, share like a weird clerical part of our brain that goes like brrr, in a way Will's like does not. Because I remember like we were both super into Animal Crossing and Will is like, how do you guys play this? What on earth? And it's not the same as that, but I could see like a similar switch being flicked with this resonating with us.
I mean, I really like Pikmin Bloom. I know that's completely different in terms of gameplay, but like I very much enjoy the aesthetic of the whole thing.
Yeah, you'll probably get a kick out of the real deal then. All right. Well, I'm ready to move us on to our final rotation if you guys are.
Yeah, sounds good.
Go ahead.
All right, so I was actually gonna toast 12 Angry Jurors, but thanks for that, Dav. I think I'm going to.
And when I run out of topics on Toast and Roast, I go on my phone.
I guess it's a good time to talk about Slow Roast, and that being Hoodwinked.
No, I was just kidding, but I guess you're going with that, right?
Yeah. No, so we watched Hoodwinked for movie night. I remember watching that movie as, like, a kid once, and, like, not really remembering it. But, you know, we watched it for movie night, and there are some parts that I laughed at, but overall, it's, like, a really bad movie. The animation is, like,
God.
I would say even beyond god-awful, just, like, doesn't look appealing in the slightest. And apparently that was, like, because they got, like, celebrity voices for the characters, so they're like, oh, we have to pay them more instead of, you know, and move that budget to the animation, which is a stupid fucking idea. Also, I mean, I don't feel bad about spoiling this. You know, the big twist is that the bunny was behind all of it. Like, watching as an adult, though, it's like, it is so painfully obvious they don't even really try to hide it.
Oh, yeah.
So it honestly comes off as, like, baby's first plot twist.
To be fair, when I was 8 years old, the target audience watching in the theater and that happened, I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. But I mean, looking at it as an adult, it is a pretty horrible movie. You know, Patrick Warburton's in it, and she does great. And who plays Granny?
Glenn Close.
Glenn Close.
Yeah, Glenn Close is good. I mean, pretty much, like, all the voice actors are good. The problem is like, the story is pretty paper thin, and, like, let's go back to the fucking bunny. If you look up, I can't remember the name of the bunny. If
Boingo.
you look up Hoodwinked...
Boingo.
Yeah, Boingo. If you look up Hoodwinked Boingo, it's like, they tried to make him cute the hardest they possibly could, and they just fucking failed so miserably. Like, the fact that the cutest character is, like, going into, or the supposed to be, like, cutest character is, like, so far into the uncanny valley shows that, like, this film really couldn't be redeemed. I think with, like, better animation and, a bigger budget, it would work. But, like, I think this came out the year after The Incredibles.
Yeah.
At that point, that shit is inexcusable at that point.
Yeah, that's just like, what the hell are you doing? Yeah, what did you guys think of Hoodwinked?
I mean, so, like, not even... Okay, to make it even worse, to, like, put some salt in the wound, not only did this come out a year after The Incredibles, this came out a year after Shrek 2.
Oh.
Which was another fairy tale parody type movie. That the first one, which came out 3, or I guess actually 4 years before this, looks miles better.
And eats its lunch in, like, the satire aspect
in every way.
Yeah.
Still has celebrity voice actors. This really does feel like it was trying to jump on the success of Shrek in a way. And I think that, honestly, this movie does have a bit of a cult following because people remember it so well just because of how insanely it was marketed back when it was first coming out. But I think that this movie would really be a cult classic if they just did, like, a little bit better with the animation. It's just too ugly to go back and rewatch, though.
Yeah, I think even if the story is good, it's just such an eyesore that, like, I don't think anything but, like, better animation could save that.
No. There's like kernels of kind of, like, the woodsman who's also, like, an aspiring actor is like, that's a cute idea. He has his moments, but, like, he's also, like, dead in the eyes, and his mouth moves as if independent from the rest of his body. So I can't really
I don't think a single character blinks in that movie.
Oh, no. And, like, what I always come back to is that, like, this is to the effect of, like, the Pauly Shore Pinocchio in quality. Like, there's no reason this should have been anything outside of, like, something you find in the Walmart bargain bin straight to DVD. Except that Weinstein, like, saw the kernel of a marketable idea, put in celebrity voices, and put it in January when nothing comes out in fucking January, and it made its budget 10 fucking times over. Which is
just insane.
It is sheer lunacy. And it spawned a sequel, and it was, like, almost kind of a franchise. But I was there. My dad took me to see it, and I was like, eh. I was 8 years old, and I was like, pretty good. I was juror number 1 trying to get to the baseball game, just giving blood money to Hoodwinked. No, but yeah, did not age well, that film.
Yeah. I also, like, looked on, because I was like, oh, I wonder what Hoodwinked 2, Hood vs. Evil, has on Letterboxd. And I go to it, Tommy, you fucking watched Hoodwinked 2?
I also saw that one in the...
I've seen it as well.
Let me look something up and make sure something is correct.
This came out in 2011. You were in fucking high school.
No, oh yeah, I was, huh?
Yeah, I was 12 when I watched it. It was and I didn't like it then, but I mean, at least I was 12.
So guys, here's the big revelation about Hoodwinked 2. Let me check when it came out. Yup. So I have this very distinct memory, and I had to check when it came out to make absolutely sure. I have this very distinct memory of my dad taking me to see Hoodwinked 2, getting home that night, and it was May 2nd, 2011, and we turned on the news and saw that Osama bin Laden had been killed.
Oh, man. Dude, I bet your dad was going home and it was like, oh, man, that movie sucked. Could this night get any worse? Osama bin Laden has been killed. No.
Like, I think we, like, found it vaguely cute. I still didn't have very...
What, Osama bin Laden?
Bill Hader and Amy Poehler were the villains Hansel and Gretel, and we were just mimicking their accents. And so imagine just, like, having that be, like, the talk of the car ride home, like, oh, the little German children are so funny in the movie. And we turn on our TV, and it's... Obama telling us Osama bin Laden has been killed. Thank you all very much.
The only scene I think I and a lot of people remember from the sequel is the "Do I amuse you?"
What is that? I remember
Where he's
Boingo. Boingo is like Hannibal Lecter. He's locked up and they have to go to him for advice.
Right, but there's like the scene where the guy from Everybody Loves Raymond like plays the giant.
Oh, Brad Garrett, yeah.
Yeah, and he's just like he like makes a joke and one of his henchmen like laughs at it and he's just like, "Do I amuse you?" And the henchman's just like, "Oh, what? I hate my job." And then he like slaps him and he goes flying in this janky ass animation sequence and like bounces off of the window. You just have to see. It's really strange looking, but it's hilarious because of that, and that's the only scene I remember from the sequel.
The squeakquel.
Germaine to what we've been talking about, pause this podcast right now and watch the Fine Brothers kids react to the death of Osama bin Laden. We'll wait. Go watch that video, because I randomly remembered it, like, not long ago and showed it to you guys, and it is the most bizarre fucking thing. Because I was, like, a regular viewer of that channel when that video came out, and I remember being 13 years old and being like, I'm glad they covered that serious topic, and we watched it today and we're like, what the fuck are we doing here, guys?
Well, yeah, they're, like, asking fucking literal 5-year-olds, they're like, do you think Osama bin Laden deserved to get his brains blown out of his, like, fucking cave wall? And they're like, I don't know.
Well, I like the twins who, like, they're 2 6-year-old twins, and one of them's like, I don't think I'm comfortable celebrating a death, and the other's like, but he killed so many people! Oh, we know which one's the alpha twin. Fucking A.
It has some similar energy to me watching Sesame Street during 9/11.
Yeah.
And hey, speaking of 9/11, Mr. Dav, a third round has hit the Pentagon, which is...
They hit the pin. Okay.
A third Hoodwinked has hit the Weinstein Corporation.
Third Hoodwinked. You know what? That's what we really need, actually.
God, we just need a third Hoodwinked so, like, another fucking terrorist can die.
Find out that Putin was assassinated or something.
You're watching Hoodwinked. Man, fucking Bowen Yang was such a silly villain as Rumpelstiltskin in Hoodwinked 3. Vladimir Putin has been assassinated.
Okay, well, it's not just the third round that's hit the towers. Here's the thing. This is a very rare thing to happen to me, but this is a triple toast today.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to toast a game that I finished approximately 2 hours ago.
Oh.
And that is Metroid Prime.
Woo.
Listen, Dav, I've just got one question.
What's that?
How am I supposed to kill this Metroid without my Prime?
That's like, I ask you to continue and immediately regret it because I know where it's going. So Metroid Prime is the second Metroid game I have played because I'm playing in chronological order. Started with the Zero mission and quite enjoyed that. So now I'm going to play the Metroid Prime trilogy, starting with this first one, of course. And Metroid Prime is a game that, like, commonly gets touted as one of the best video games ever made. And whenever a game is touted like that, I approach it with some caution because that's not always really, like, it doesn't mean you're going to enjoy it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I usually do like games like that, but not to the extent that they are held up to. But in this case, I definitely see why that is, because this game is really just, like, it's not a very, like, there's not a whole lot to the story, to be frank. It's pretty simple. It's, you know, you crash into this planet and you gotta go kill the Metroids and the pirates and such. There's some lore there, which you can get from the scanning ability, which is really, really fun to use. And, like, you know, it's a bit hard to follow. I think if you like really deep dive into this, I think outside of the games especially, maybe you have a better idea of what's going on, but it's really incidental. You don't really need to know every little bit of lore or anything. You just know you're a bounty hunter, you have a really cool suit, go shoot some aliens. And this game, I think, where it really shines is in its game design, and it's levels. It's kind of a big interconnected world with, like, I think 5 different segments that are all connected to each other. And it truly feels like, because, like I said, I played Zero Mission, which was a remake of the first game. It really feels like that in 3D, and, like, in the best way possible. And it works so well. There is so much that just comes together, and you feel like every single nook and cranny of this world was, like, designed specifically to lead in, like, one into another thing. Because there are puzzles that just are such, like, galaxy brain, the way that they are designed, but not necessarily in the way that you have to solve them. Like, they're not super difficult, but it's like, oh, I got this new laser, and there's this thing that I passed by earlier that would probably be opened by the laser that I just got. And, you know, that's the kind of feeling that you get from Metroidvanias, but in this, it feels so satisfying to, for example, the grapple beam is something that's kind of held over your head the entire game. You just constantly see these big chasms and, like, lava lakes that you can't get over because it's like, oh, I look up and my scanner says there's a hooking point for the grapple beam, but I still don't get it. And, like, by the end of the game, you finally get it, and you just have the satisfaction of running back through everything you just did and just swinging around like you're Spider-Man, and it is so awesome the way that feels.
It's a very...
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's a very risky approach when you do, like, you have all your fucking powers in the tutorial, and then you lose them. And it's the drive of getting them back that motivates you. And that can kind of suck, but it can be very gratifying.
It works really well in this, especially because the tutorial, like, it's not very long. It's the Frigate Orphean segment. And you have all your abilities, but you don't really have a lot of, like, opportunity to use them on the frigate. So, like, you understand that you're powerful, but you don't really, like, value that yet. And then when you crash on the planet and kind of lose everything, that's when it becomes like, oh crap, I gotta get everything back. But it's like, props to this game for, you kind of go through the entire world like dozens of times. Like, there's a ton of backtracking and just walking around and looking at a ton of stuff, and it never gets old, in my opinion. It never gets boring. It feels fresh every time you come past the same thing, but with, like, new abilities.
I gave it a try too, and I think I didn't, like, hate it or anything. I just rented it, and I was just kind of, I love Metroidvanias. I think it's just, like, the way a 3D character in an FPS way moves. Because, Samus, she's moving, and it's almost like your point of view is it's back and forth and back. I just don't care for, like, first-person shooter movement, and because Metroidvanias require a lot of backtracking, it got maybe a little tiresome from me. But that's purely, like, a me thing. I think I was impressed with everything I came across.
Yeah, I think maybe, I imagine you didn't get, like, super far into the game then, in that case?
No, not terribly.
Because you kind of, over the course of the game, get some really good movement options, like, the parts where you're, like, rolled up into a ball, there's, like I said, the grapple beam, there's, like, the double jump, which surprisingly adds a ton to the way that you move around.
Interesting.
So I think, at first, maybe if it's just, like, you're just walking around, you have a single jump, you're kind of anchored to the floor most of the time, then I could probably see that, where it could get a bit old, but I think it does a good job of, like, feeding you some more movement options over time, so it's paced pretty well, in my opinion.
Gotcha.
I mean, I tried Metroid Dread, and I really like that one. And Prime is when a Meta Ridley's introduced, right?
Yes.
Oh, that's really cool.
The boss fight with Meta Ridley is really cool, but it's also really aggravating. If I wasn't save scumming, I probably would have torn my hair out. But it was, it was fun. The ending reminded me a lot of DMC1. It feels a lot like that, where it's like a massive difficulty spike, and if you lose, you're punished, frankly, pretty severely, but it's very satisfying to beat it.
Absolutely.
So I loved it.
What are your hopes for Prime 4 then?
Well, I mean, I do want to finish Prime 2 and 3 before I really definitively say, because I imagine the series still improves over time in terms of the gameplay, because 2 and 3 are both held to some pretty high regards too.
People do people think the first one's the best in the series, or?
I think generally, yeah, the first one is held as the best, but from what I've seen, 2 and 3 both are very close to that.
Wow.
And it might just be because of the setting, because it is a very, like I said, it's kind of an intimate world that you're exploring dozens of times, and you kind of learn it as you go. I think 2 and 3 are a bit more expansive than that, so I could probably see why people don't have as much of an attachment without that kind of world. But I do hope that 4, again, as somebody who doesn't know what 2 and 3 introduces to the series, I just kind of hope that it's maybe a little bit better with the enemies, because there's a couple boss fights that are really cool before the final ones. There aren't a whole lot, but the enemy variety is overall not super great. It's usually just bugs that crawl around, or space pirates that shoot at you, and they're all pretty easy. They're just kind of incidental, and you can kind of ignore them, honestly. So I hope, improvements to combat and enemy variety would be nice, but outside of that, I really just don't have a whole lot to criticize this game for. It's just super tightly and amazingly well made.
I was impressed by how, Metroid being a 2D thing, it just felt like one of those things I was just begging to be translated into 3D, and characters like Ridley and Cray just came out extremely well in the Prime series.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to some Cray, because he's not in this one, but I do like me some big monsters.
He is, you haven't played Dread. He's really cool in Dread.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
He's fun in Zero Mission, and he takes up 4 screens.
As he should. Fucking, that's how you do Kraid.
Yeah.
So yeah, perfect, well, not perfect, but I can completely see why this is considered a perfect game by so many people. It just feels like you're playing a classic, and it's awesome. I think I hear a wormhole or something opening up. Something from earlier.
Oh no.
Well, guess that's gonna have to pass that off to Sherman Potato Smith so that wormhole can complete whatever its mission is.
For some reason, I've been reminded of David Fincher.
Yeah.
Who?
David Fincher, that's what I'm hearing.
Oh man. Well, see, he's referenced in the film that we saw this week, Dav, as an early release. So I'm happy I can bring the folks at home the scoop before it goes wide. September 1st, everyone should go see Bottoms. It is my movie of the year, and I have a hard time imagining that changing, honestly. Fucking A. So my background with this movie, I've been looking forward to it for a while. It stars Rachel Sennett and Io Adebri, who are very adjacent comedians who did a lot of Comedy Central skits together, and they've done some stand-up specials, and I've always been fans of theirs, and they've been making their way up here and there. Io Adebri is April in Mutant Mayhem as well. It's been a really big year for her. She's all over the place. So when I heard, okay, they're finally going to star in a movie together, like a studio comedy. I was like, all right, sign me up, I'm there. It was at one of the film festivals, and the critics I follow were like, you are not ready for bottoms. Like, the people who get to get that scoop early and go to the film festivals and talk about films as if, like... I love film festivals, even though I've never been to one, because you kind of have that energy of, like, I swear to God this movie's real. And, like, there's critics I follow who are like, I will genuinely help you see this film, because it will get a limited release, because I love it so fucking much, and I know it's not going to get attention. I was like, well, I wonder how good it could possibly be. And it is one of the funniest fucking things I've ever watched. I think it is a near-perfect comedy film, and a little bit of a near-perfect action film in a weird way. Rachel and Io play PJ and Josie. They are high schoolers who are lesbians and have a hard time with that. They're having a hard time, their crushes are cheerleaders that don't really notice them. And an altercation occurs where there's the star football player too, Jeff, who's fucking great. And an altercation occurs where they lightly tap Jeff with their car. And they basically make up, sorry, we were practicing for our self-defense club, a fight club. And they get roped into starting a fight club, and they realize if they get the cheerleaders they like to join the fight club, they can win them over and ultimately seduce their crushes. And from there, it's just high school girls beating the tar out of each other, and it sounds Revenge of the Nerds-ish. It kind of harkens to teen comedies, and it winks at that a lot, but I think it just plays, there's sincerity in there, but only just enough. It's kind of a cartoon when shit happens in this fucking film.
Yeah, it's hilarious throughout, honestly. It's just consistently very funny.
God, like, Rachel Sennett, I think, is just one of the most gifted improvisers in the world, and, she's the more opportunistic of the two characters, and I think my favorite line in the film is she sees the girls who show up for self-defense class, and she's disappointed they're not hotter, and she goes, I guess Krista would be pretty if she got rid of her braces and stopped huffing paint. It's fucking amazing. Marshawn Lynch, the football player, is also their teacher and the club sponsor, and he's fucking hilarious as well.
Yeah, I think pretty much all of his lines are improv.
Oh, yeah. God, he's fucking amazing. He's like, you two are my favorite students, even though I can't remember your names. It's better than Damian Johnson, who never showed up after the first day. And they're just like, Damian Johnson killed himself. And he's like, sure they did.
That's really funny.
There's one of the, football players in this movie looks exactly like a roided up version of that kid from Detective Pikachu.
Oh yeah, you're right.
I thought it was him, and I was like, damn, he really bulked up for this movie, but it's like somebody completely different.
Yeah. He does a good. He's kind of arguably. He's like the brains of the weirdly antagonistic football force, alongside Jeff, who is like the star football player, who is this giant man baby, who just says his own name a lot. Oh my god. I won't spoil Will the context, but fucking Mrs. Callahan, can I have a snack? Oh my god. It goes like, and it's like, it reminds me a bit of Heathers, almost, and it goes to like kind of dark places, but it plays on it.
There's a direct reference to that.
Oh yeah, that's true actually. Like, there's so many lines that, I think it's written and directed by women, so they are allowed to go places that, another fucking line that killed me was, they were like, well, we fight, in the fight club, we should still get to know each other, so instead of sparring today, we're just gonna have, a sharing circle, and Rachel Sennett just instantly goes, alright, who's been raped? And no one raised their hand. She goes, gray area stuff counts too. All the girls fucking raised their hand. Oh,
I like there was one girl who they said was an actress like local to New Orleans who is just a completely psycho bitch the entire movie.
Oh yeah, she's the one who was
like, she screeches every single one of her lines, and I think, is she the one who wants to kill her stepdad?
Yeah, they're like, with self-defense classes, I'll reverse stalk my stalker, and she's like, and I'll kill my stepdad.
And like, she occasionally describes him, and he's just like a completely normal guy. She just doesn't like him.
That does sound pretty funny.
And she's like this weirdly specific brand of girl that I think everybody knows, but I cannot even. She's wearing an oversized sweatshirt and a beanie, and she has braces, and she's just like entirely too enthusiastic about everything.
Yeah.
There's okay to illustrate what kind of film this is. When we get our first scene in a classroom, the girls walk in, and there's one single student in the classroom in a steel-barred cage. And no one acknowledges it, and no one explains it. But then it fucking comes back around towards the end of the film, and you're like, oh, I see. But just like in the background, and no one draws attention to it. I described in my Letterboxd review, I was like, this is like if Mean Girls were a shonen anime, and that's not an exaggeration. Like, the characters fucking fight, and shit goes fucking insane, and... Because it's like, it's one of those movies that just like weirdly operates on its own rules, where fighting and killing each other is like okay. Like this could be in like the Scott Pilgrim universe almost, I feel like.
It does feel like that, where it like kind of presents itself as normal, and then just over time gets more and more chaotic.
Yeah, people just do cartoon shit, and everyone's just okay with it. We are not going to address how impossible that is. But that's the shit I fucking love. This is my current obsession. It's my favorite. I'm going to see it again when it goes live, wide this weekend, I think. And I think everyone at home should.
Yeah, definitely. Honestly, I think this movie's probably not going to break any records or anything, but I think it is going to be like maybe even arguably like this generation's Superbad.
I could see that.
It's probably going to be like a classic for a lot of people.
I could see it having a very strong cult following, and I hope Emma Seligman, she's the director, she gets to do cool shit. She says she wants to do a horror film next, and I'm all over that.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. Alright, we ready for news?
Let's do it.
Alright. Alright, and news is a little skimpy. One of my notes was Scott Pilgrim coming November 17th, and we kind of covered that. We'll skip it. I want to vent about something personal to, just me. You guys, I mentioned this, but,
yeah, no, I know you're really upset that the,
Osama bin Laden's dead?
Yeah, but, there will be other, terrorists, so you'll be okay.
But it would have felt wrong. I don't know if this is weird, because it's not the biggest thing, but, it would have felt wrong not to acknowledge, Let's Fight a Boss is my favorite podcast currently, and they've been on hiatus since the start of the year, and a couple weeks ago, they fully pulled the trigger and said, we're not coming back. And the only real reason I make a big deal about that is that, if you've listened to this point, you deserve to know there would not be West Coast Toast and Roast without Let's Fight a Boss. I'm going to be perfectly honest. There's a handful of podcasts that, inspire my work, but that was, far and away the biggest one. And I feel comfortable saying this because they say themselves, when you start a podcast, you have to start by imitating someone else. And I thank them for helping me be comfortable in that way, to say that getting you guys in a room to info dump about hyperfixations for 2.5 hours every month was my way. It's special to me to do it, but it was my inspiration, to give people the same, hopefully the same leisure and entertainment that podcast gave me. And I was a little, I was kind of preparing for it with how long they were on hiatus, but it did not it still doesn't feel fully real to be like, well, it's done and over and not coming back.
Yeah, I mean, they finally found a boss that they couldn't fight.
You say that, but like that Brian's goodbye message was to the effect of like, I know it's unexpected, but that's what the boss fight calls for sometimes. And I was like, yeah, it really does. Man. No, and like, man, they just had, it was Brian, Neve, and John, and I'm still like, John is the reason I'm making content. He's super eye patch wolf. He's still making videos to this day. I don't want to jinx myself, but there's probably no one I personally admire or find myself shadowing more than like him and the Blank Check guys and the Doughboys and a few others.
Yeah, and Osama bin Laden.
Yes.
He is somebody whose like opinions, like I seem to see a ton of overlap between like what he likes and what I like. Like his video on Yakuza is like what got me to actually try it, and also like on Berserk, so I started reading that after he made that video. And
I couldn't finish his video about like the end of Berserk. It just made me too sad.
Yeah,
it's pretty depressing. But like he's got very good taste and stuff. I refuse to ever try wrestling for some reason. I just will never start watching that.
Well, like being a theater nerd and a shonen anime nerd, I think if I tried wrestling, you would just like never hear from me again, and that's what scares me.
I'd probably get sucked into it, and we wouldn't hear from you for like 3 years until you come back talking about like Vince McMahon.
There's like the occasional character where like I'm very infatuated with Bianca Belair when I see her like pop up on my timeline or see John talk about him here and there. I'm like, oh, maybe I catch up on her stuff. No, not today. If there's ever like another pandemic, knock on wood, where we're stuck inside, I could see myself just like losing myself in wrestling.
God, yeah. I mean, I guess that would be a good time. I mean, to be frank, if we did get into another pandemic, like we would probably have the foresight to be like, all right, we gotta find a bunch of media to hunker down with for a while, because we certainly didn't do that last time. But like,
Well, I mean, to be fair, I was able to play both Persona 5 Royal and FF7 Remake.
Oh,
that's true.
Pandemic 1 was when I watched all of Dragon Ball Super. Because I was like, I'm a big Dragon Ball guy, but I was like, I'm behind on Super. It's already like 300 episodes. I'm never going to get caught up. And I'm like, well, I've got all this time inside. And I watch like 10 episodes a night. And I'm like, so that's Super. All right, well.
Yeah, I'm really going to miss their Game of the Year podcast. That is like something that I would, like when it came out, I would just put it on. And it would take me a few days to get through because I would just like play it on my commute. But that was always fun to listen to.
Man, and like... Look, contrary, because I don't drive. I'm very much, because I walk and take the bus everywhere.
Wait, you don't?
Is that the new... There's a bit on the Blank Check podcast where Griffin makes fun of David every time he mentions that he grew up in England and plays bells, and they had to, like, distinctly stop it because David was getting so bothered. And I think,
that's really funny.
And I think Tommy Can't Drive is, like, the equivalent of that.
Well, I mean, this is like very stream of consciousness, but there's a song called Johnny Can't Read, which coincidentally has the same number of syllables as Tommy Can't Drive.
So we could make the parody.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
This segment's going on a little long. What I really wanted to wrap up by saying that, as someone who relies on podcasts as much as I do, because I walk and commute via public transit everywhere, it feels... this isn't my first...
I respect you for it.
Thank you. And when a podcast goes away, it's like, oh, that's a chunk of my routine gone. Because I'm very autistically like, this is my Friday podcast, and I get my cheat meal with it, and there are many like it, but this is the Friday podcast. And I'm like, well, what am I going to do? Listen to the Saturday podcast on Friday? What the fuck? And I don't hold that to the hosts. They all had their reasons for... walking away that aren't entirely our business, I imagine. I wish them all so much the best. But I think if you get tired of waiting a whole month for Toast and Roast, there is a backlog of, I think, 176 Let's Fight a Boss episodes that I heartily recommend that are kind of the DNA for this.
And when you come back, we'll probably be on episode 100 or something.
Yeah. Absolutely. What is this, 25-ish? 23?
Yeah, about that, yeah.
Give or take, yeah. All right, so yeah, that's enough of me getting overly emotional over podcasts. I've still got Doughboys, I've still got Blank Check. I'll be okay. But if you got recommendations, throw them my way. I'm a poet and I didn't know it.
I'll always recommend Last Podcast on the Left.
I gotta try that out. Is it like necessary to be there from the start, you think?
No, not at all.
Okay, all right. There are some.
You can start on any like given series that they start. They always do like 4 or 5 episodes of like a specific topic, so you can just jump in on any of those.
That's what I love about Blank Check is that it is because the premise is every miniseries is film by film a director's filmography. So you can start like this month they've been doing Park Chan-wook. And you can start with the Park Chan-wook films if you just want to...
Which is a very, very, very good one.
Yeah. They're wrapping that one up. Like I said earlier, next is Fincher, so that's pretty exciting. All right, yeah. So, yeah, I'm always looking for new podcast stuff, folks at home. So if you got stuff similar to Let's Fight a Boss, let me know, because Tommy is sad. So the news... Okay, let's start with, but hey... It's okay to accept things that are ending. Let's talk about something happier. What's this first thing on my docket? Charles Martinet is stepping down as Mario. Fuck.
It just like obviously he's an older guy, so I understand, but it still fucking hurts.
I truly, and we're gonna get a message from him and I think Miyamoto later, they said. If we get the September Direct we usually do, I wouldn't be surprised if they just popped in for that.
Probably, yeah.
I truly hope it was mutual, that Martinet kinda was ready to step... Like, it's hard not to imagine some exec being like, "You're out of the streets, Martinet!" But I truly could see it be, I truly hope and imagine it was mutual. And I like that they still have him as a Mario ambassador. I think that's a pretty good title for him.
Yeah.
I'm almost certain this was like Martinet's decision, because I mean Nintendo, with how much they like to hold on to things that are like their brand, I think that's like the last thing they would have ever wanted to do is change the voice actor for Mario.
That's very true. And we were talking about that Nintendo Direct, I think the previous one that had the new Wario and new Mario, and we're like, well, Martinet, man, they got Martinet to finally record new dialogue, and I guess it was just a whole new guy doing a really good job.
It's like close enough that it really fooled me. So I mean, like, yeah, if that is a new person, then kudos to them, because goddamn.
And Martinet's been doing it for... Martinet's been Mario longer than any of us have been alive. So it's so hard to imagine anyone else in that role. But, that's kind of the...
Will, you're staying awful silent. Got anything to tell us, or would that be breaching NDA?
Oh, God, I wish.
Give us your best "I'm a Waluigi, I'm a gonna win."
Okay. I'm a Waluigi. I hate those cave dorks.
Hey, I'm a fucking Wario. I mean, what do you want from me?
Man. It says a lot that our first conclusion from Mario and Wario sounding a tad different is, oh, Martinet is 70 now, not Martinet is retiring. God bless the guy. He always seemed like such a genuinely, like, jovial person to be around.
Yeah.
We didn't meet him at Comic-Con, but we were kind of because we were waiting in line to meet Tara Strong, was it, Will? And we heard him?
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, like, he's kind of at the booth over. You can see and hear him pretty clearly. We just, we opted for Tara Strong. And I just see him with a big marker doing an autograph. And he's, like, clearly, like, scribbling and going, "Wah!" as he writes on a poster.
I feel like I gotta get him to sign something before he checks out, because it's a shame that I never got, like, Stan Lee to sign anything. I don't want to miss that with Charles Martinet.
Yeah.
Don't talk about Charles Martinet dying. That's sad.
I mean, he's like way older than I'm just saying that in the future he is almost certainly going to, die before any of us, but...
Not if I have anything to say about it.
Oh, shit. Oh. Big month for gaming conventions. We had EVO and Gamescom. That's gonna be a little hard to cover. A lot of Mortal Kombat.
Gamescom.
Yeah. What?
Gamescom, I think, was pretty underwhelming. There's not a whole lot to talk about.
I'm not saying there's a ton. I'm saying I guess I always get overwhelmed that there's a ton of trailers and titles, and I can't take them all in. But for all I know, I'm missing something big. But I guess I'm reassured that you're saying yourself there wasn't much there.
I mean, there was we'll start with that because it's kind of, underwhelming, like I said. But it's there's like Project Mugen, which is that like Genshin
Spider-Man ripoff.
Yeah.
That they must have just stolen those animation assets because they look exactly the same. And then I guess God, what else was there besides that? I heard that Bethesda showed the first teaser for the Fallout TV series somewhere to not very good receptions.
I never even heard about that. I'm so tuned out with Bethesda stuff.
No, it's a TV series adaptation of Fallout, and it takes place in Los Angeles.
Oh boy.
Maybe I'm gonna be in it.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, other than that, there really was not much at Gamescom aside from that one dude who stormed the stage and tried
did the Bill Clinton joke?
Did the Bill Clinton joke, but worse.
If I ever come across fucking the French Bill Clinton kid, he's going straight into a locker. Fuck that kid.
Matan.
Yeah. He like pops up every 5 weeks on my Twitter feed being like, "Would your parents be proud of you, knowing you are an OnlyFans model?" And I'm like, shut the fuck up.
He does the podcast thing where he just brings really stupid people on and makes them look stupid, which is kind of just the whole thing now. We just bring somebody on who's dumb and laugh at how dumb they are.
Yeah. We lost Let's Fight a Boss, but that still exists, so there's truly no justice. Man, we finally have a release date for Tekken 8, and I thought we'd be waiting at least till March. So sooner than we're getting it in January, which is pretty fucking cool.
Oh hell yeah.
Yeah. A lot of stuff for Mortal Kombat at both conventions. So we round up. We got Reptile looking. Would you agree with me, Will? Cooler than he ever has.
Yeah, I love that he can go between human and actual reptile.
Yeah, General Shao, Ashra, lots of Glup Shidos from the 3D era. I think I might
Havoc.
Oh yeah, Havoc, Sindel. And Dav's over here like, oh yeah, Big Angry Pasta, my favorite Mortal Kombat character. I think I'm finally willing to dip my toes into being pretty hyped for this game. I think they've kind of won me over.
I would say it probably has the best roster since MK9, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. Like, I've just been so burned. I'm sure the story's gonna have some horse piss that makes me mad. But you know what? Lee May looks fucking incredible. We talked about her last time. They took Shujinko, who is like the Gary Stu of Mortal Kombat ever, and gave him the coolest X-ray attack that I think I've ever seen. He goes full fucking Jackie Chan Hong Kong Kung Fu on you. Mataro is back, and they found a way to make him work as a cameo. You know what? It's winning me over. I don't want to jinx it and say, oh, it's gonna bum me out ultimately, but man, I hope they don't let me down again, because MK11 was just like the fucking ball drop of all time.
Yeah, I really hope they make this one special. I'm glad that they're finally getting their head out of their asses about the 3D characters.
Yeah.
Because it is really refreshing to see so many of them back.
There's so many that you would never Ashra was the most nondescript fighter in MK Deception, and they figured out what works about her and just went to 11 with them and made her fucking cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. We got a teaser for Street Fighter having Aki, and she's femme Fong. She seems a little cool, I guess. I'm gonna Google real fast EVO reveals just to make sure I don't forget anything, because I'm sure there's... EVO is all fighting game stuff, though. I guess there's not much there for the average listener. Dav, am I correct about the coffee girl in Tekken, that you'd like her?
I don't know who you're talking about.
Oh, I sent the trailer. I thought you... There's a new character in Tekken who's from Peru, and she's, like, hyper addicted to coffee, and she's, like, you know, she can dodge really well because she's so fast on her coffee.
The Coffee Queen?
Yeah.
Oh, this... yeah, sure.
Yeah. I had a weird... Just my Dav waifu senses went off.
Yeah, I see it, yeah.
Yeah.
You are correct.
Nice.
She's not a robot, though, is she?
No.
Not to our knowledge.
Is Elisa supposed to be in this game, Will? Because the roster, I think, got leaked.
I think, yeah, she was in there.
Fuck. Oh.
Great.
Well,
there was, I guess you could count, Abakio and...
Oh, yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
I was kind of thinking, like, the only possible level 3 he could have is the cafe curb stomp beatdown, and they fucking did it. And there's, what, 2 more DLC characters?
Yeah, at least in this pass, I think.
Yeah. One from Part 4, and I think another from Part 8.
I think it's, like, Joshu and Highway Star at this point.
I think it's got... I genuinely don't know who they could put in besides Highway Star, and I'm gonna be fucking mad if they do.
It's fucking the paper guy.
Oh, Jesus.
It's the alien.
No.
Not my least favorite Superfly compared to Mutant Mayhem Superfly. Wait, am I thinking of the right guy? No, Superfly was the tower. Yeah.
Yeah, the alien was Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Right. Thank you.
Didn't the alien go into the tower, though? Isn't he the
I
one
think
stuck
that might be why I'm confusing them. It was a big...
Rocket really just does, like, write some weird resolutions to his stories.
Yeah.
Like, there's just an alien living inside of a cell tower now.
Yeah, he's fine. Do you guys have any other news? Because, yeah, like you said, yeah, Gamescom was a little dry. There was a lot of our quirky indie game where the characters have, like, black dots for eyes and they move with realistic physics, and they're pigeons or they're weird little people.
That's pretty much the size of everything.
Yeah, I guess it was kind of a slow... Huh?
Fairly dry month, yeah.
Yeah, slower month. But we had a lot to talk about, so this was still a pretty jam-packed episode. If we get that direct next month, things tend to kind of fall into place. I could see September kind of blowing up because it tends to be like a bit of quiet, and then Nintendo Direct will drop, and then I guess we'll see. Strikes are still going hard. Keep fighting, folks. I get a little glimmer of hope when studios say they'll negotiate, like hoping they'll just finally give in. Because I want what's, best for everyone. And then the next day, it'll, like, look like Bob Iger is, like, tweeting, like, this is unfucking believable. They wouldn't take my pennies. I'm like, fuck. But hey, keep on striking. As much as I'd love to see Io Debris on Hot Ones for bottoms, I'll live without it if it means they get what they need.
Yeah. That's true.
Whew. Well, I guess that's all. Yeah, that'll be everything. Here's to September being a little more exciting in the news front, maybe less of a bummer with podcasts and voice actors stepping down, and, terrorists dying. That's tragic.
Yeah, sorry about that, Sherm.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm going to close my eyes tonight and see the inner eyelids of Grimace, of course. I'm Tommy.
I'm going to close my eyes tonight and picture all the mistakes and people I've ever let down, and I'm Will.
I'm going to go watch Skibbity Toilet 59 while my reflection of Wilford Brimley watches in the distance. I'm Dav.
I like to think that, like, people are listening and the podcast has, like, an hour and 53 minutes more of time, because I'm like, oh, well, we gotta talk about Skibbity Toilet.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tommy, why don't you sing the Skibbity Toilet theme for our fans?
Good night, everybody.